I stole
Makes
the
me
light
wonder
bulbs.
what watt that is.
I think it's only 40 watts actually. I stole it over one of my photography lamps.
Griddle,
Yo,
send me a rack, please.
I'll send you a rack when I get a rack. Hey, it's 10
This
o'clock.
stuff is loud.
It is, I can hear it. Well, welcome to another Clarion Call discussion. So let's jump in and start talking about the dev question of the week. So the dev question of the week was, what mobs are you guys looking to, or sorry, what races are you guys looking to see in ESO? So it can be any race from Morrowind to all the way up to Skyrim, possibly even Daggerfall if you remember that far back.
And this is non-playable races, right?
Yes, excluding playable races, because we already know what they
I
are.
want to see giants in game.
Giants.
Did you say giants? I agree.
Yes. Because the giants were one of the most painful things in that game to try and defeat, and it was a challenge, and I enjoyed fighting them and their mammoths.
And the other one, I mean, is just a simple one, is just the trolls. The trolls were always a lot of fun. They
Yes.
were... I remember the first time I ran into them in Bolivia. I'll admit, some of them scared the crap out of me.
Now,
But they were fun, hard fights.
are trolls considered Ettins in, or not trolls, are giants considered Ettins in Elder Scrolls? Or do you guys not know what Ettins are?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm assuming you mean like humanoid?
An Ettin is basically a giant troll. Can be two-headed, can be single-headed, usually really clumsy and kind of stupid.
Oh,
Then
so
yes.
sort of like you.
Essentially, yes. It's a big, yeah, shut up.
But yeah, they are. But they are the rulers of the mammoths, where you find the giants, you find mammoth herds. They are their sustenance. They are what they live off of. They're mammoth herds.
Okay, so that explains why when I was playing Skyrim, anytime I would see usually a mammoth, there's usually a giant very close by.
And that's why you asked when we were talking about map icons when you were first playing it, the giant camp icon is a mammoth's face.
Yes, it had the tusks. Okay, that makes sense then. Giant camp. Okay. Because see, when you told me giant camp, I was thinking, giant camp. I was thinking big camp.
Nope.
So another topic I really want to discuss, and I think it's a hot button topic, especially for a new MMO, is gold farmers, gold bots, people that just bot in every game. I think WoW actually does it, not specifically WoW, but Blizzard does a very good job with this with their Warden program. So what kind of programs or what kind of stops can they put in place that you think will actually prevent gold farmers?
Well, let's start with the fact that no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to get rid of gold farmers completely. Thinking that that's possible, in my opinion, is stupid. You can negate it, but you'll never be able to get rid of it completely. I think they can design certain types of programs or features or whatever that check what you're doing and how often you're doing something. And I'm sure there are programs that determine the difference between a human playing the game and it being a bot. I'm sure they have stuff like that they can put into the game, but as I said, you're not going to be able to negate it completely. It's always going to be there no matter what you're doing. You're not going to be able to get every single person.
One thing I hope that helps in general is just your new gameplay mechanics. I mean, it's very different. There's no, okay, you have the person targeted, now spam abilities anymore, and okay, you may get an error that they're not in front of you or they're not within range that you can base your character movement off of. I mean, you put a bot and it attacks, it could be swinging its nuts off and hitting nothing. I mean, how well are they going to... I think it's going to be harder to program a bot for this game than it is for another game.
Yeah, I definitely agree to that. I think because it's going to be more interactive with the mouse buttons, right and left click. But, I mean, there's a program out there, I'm not going to mention it, that you can do some pretty intense coding with. For example, with in Diablo 3, it's a very good example, mainly because I know a lot about it and a lot about the bots for that program. Within Diablo 3, I mean, you can tell this bot to specifically kill one type of mob, loot specific items. So, I mean, telling it to use right and left click, I mean, probably isn't going to be too hard. Now, if you're an archer, I don't see very many arching bots because, again, it's going to take a little bit more skill, a little bit more human interaction for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, being able to aim, counter the distance, and all that,
Exactly.
that would be impressive.
Yeah, as you guys were saying, I don't think the traditional bots that you see in standard MMOs, such as WoW, SOTOR, and what other MMOs you think of, are going to be in Skyrim or Elder Scrolls Online. But I do think that there will be eventually some sort of bot that somebody programs into the game, and I think ZeniMax will do a good job at negating it. But like I said, I don't think they'll be able to get rid of it completely. That it's almost impossible to do.
I know that ZeniMax has said that in the game they won't have like the standard MMO style of fighting. There won't be there will be rotations of it. What I'm trying to say is that the bosses won't have set variables that they follow. Like in World of Warcraft, I know there's always one method to defeat the boss, and this one method is repeated over and over again. However, I also know that in the Elder Scrolls, they have the bosses actually conform to different strategies throughout it, so they won't use the exact same strategy for every single fight.
Yeah, and I think that in itself is a huge step in the right direction for MMOs. I mean, I was watching a video about some of the combat that you're going to expect in this game in Elder Scrolls Online, and we had a really good discussion about it, about how all the new combos and abilities and features that are going to be there. If a thief or whoever lays the tar down, a mage can come up and ignite it. I mean, that's a cool feature, and the fact that bosses and other mobs around it have that AI built into it, I think is phenomenal.
And I think that in itself will also make gold farming more difficult to have AI not run a specific set of commands, have them interact with the characters different. I think it's going to make a not actual person playing more difficult to defeat even just some of your standard mobs.
Yeah, like, I definitely think it's the right direction, especially with the left and right mouse buttons. I mean, there's only one other game that I can think of right now that has that same type of combat, and as of yet, I haven't seen any real bots in it. I mean, it's still closed beta, but I mean, there's games I've played in closed beta that still have bots in it. People just try to accumulate gold. To be honest with you, I have no idea why, but botting's just one of those things where if it's an MMO, it's everywhere. You see it. I mean, Guild Wars 2 was really bad at release. Diablo 3 is horrible. WoW isn't too bad. I mean, you do see them, but I don't think it's as nuisance as it was before, like especially in vanilla. So do you guys think there's any real steps that the game can take that'll prevent it? Like, there was a couple posts I was reading that somebody had an idea of making multiple different types of currencies, having like a PvP currency, having a PvE currency, cross-realm currency.
Yep, that was me.
Ah, it was you. I thought that's why it stuck. So, do you want to explain that? Explain that idea and let Glenn and Altair hear it.
Yeah, well, I was reading the post, and they were talking about how to combat gold farming, and then everyone was getting into basically a discussion about how gold farming was working and how currency and whatnot was working. So I got thinking, well, what if we just have a currency that each faction will have? Each faction has their own currency. And then there's a central currency that will take place if you take interaction between different factions. Like for the auction house, for example, uses its own currency, but this currency has a conversion rate from your faction's currency to a global currency, which is the cross-faction currency. And this currency, the exchange rate between them is based upon the total amount of gold within your faction. So if you have 60% gold, another faction has 20%, another faction has 20%. The one with 60% of the gold within their faction will have to pay more conversion to have a global currency than one in a 20%. This will, in my mind, even out the gold farming because it'll still be the same for everyone, but the place with the least gold farmers will be able to get uh, less cheaply, and the place with more gold farmers will have to spend more money. Now, this, in my mind, would combat this form of gold farming because obviously you're not going to know how many gold farmers are in each faction. Therefore, you won't know which faction has more unless you have a character in each one. And then at that, you'll have to have a gold farmer in each faction, which then will complicate things because then you need 3 max level characters instead of just 1.
So
I
which
think it would be really neat.
I think it's a cool idea. I'm still confused. Okay, so if say for example I'm farming and say there's an auction house in the game, it's a faction only auction house, so only your faction can see it. Again, this is all hypothetical. Which currency am I using? Am I using my faction's currency or am I using world's currency?
I thought of this, and in my opinion, in the currency system that I said, you would be using your own faction's currency, not the world currency. Because this is a faction-only deal, so you'll be doing only faction.
So at what point would you see the world currency coming in?
The
I'm
world
sh-
currency will be when, let's just say, someone from the Ebonheart Pact trades with someone from the Aldori Domain. This is where the world currency comes into place, because obviously you can't transfer the faction currency. You're going to have to transfer another form of currency.
I can see
I'm
that deterring
assuming
people. What was that, Glenn?
I'm assuming they have announced some form of cross-faction auction house, or have they not talked about that at all yet? I mean, I assume there would be one.
I assume I've asked them several times. I've surfed the forums, Twitter, Facebook, and they have been pretty tight-lipped about it.
Yeah, I haven't. There hasn't been any official mention from what I've seen regarding any form of auction house. But I mean, there's definitely going to be a way for people to sell the items they get in game. I mean, the auction house has become a requirement in almost every MMO.
I agree.
Like my ideal version of the auction house is consignment merchants. I wrote an article about crafting, which kind of went in a little bit more detail as to the way I want to see the way to sell our wares. Is if housing comes out, I want to be able to put a consignment merchant either in a city or whatever that will sell my wares for me.
I agree upon this. I believe that each player being in this environment, as in, maybe there'll be Khajiit people, but there'll be like caravanners, and you can hire a Khajiit NPC, and you can have wares displayed, and they can be bought from this NPC. This is what I really do believe they should go. However, we have no idea what they're actually going to do. They might do an auction house system, which I think will kind of deter from the lore standpoint of it, because there obviously was no auction house at the time. But I believe they should have Khajiit caravans because, well, those are the most obvious because everyone knows the Khajiit caravans, and they travel between each faction into this one specific city, and each day their wares get updated.
Yeah, I definitely think the Khajiit caravans is a huge part of the built-in lore already. But again, with that aspect, if you use Khajiit caravans, what are the other factions going to use? Because again, Khajiits aren't there, and will the Khajiit caravans be able to go to those factions, or is it going to be a single faction system? I don't mind a single faction system, but I don't know. I could definitely see a big flaw with it, especially on a mega server.
I could almost see them putting in some sort of traders guild type of thing that works between the faction for the cross-faction trading. That's not just one specific race. You have a couple races a part of it. Just going back your reputations and different guilds and things like that. I could see them at least doing that. That will work between some kind of trading system between the factions.
What do you think, Altair?
I think the consignment thing is a real good idea. It adds a sense of role play into the game as far as selling your wares and whatnot. Though I also think implementing an auction house would also be a good idea. Maybe like sort of like how Guild Wars did it, where you don't actually it's a what the hell is it? Something you pop up from your
Hmm.
HUD
Yeah, the black
rather
line.
than going in. Yeah, that thing. That would be a something interesting. Um, though I wanted to hit on the different currencies and negating the price of currency based off of the amount of gold that you have in your faction. That while that sounds like a great idea, I personally see a flaw in that, in the fact that if, let's say, the Even Heart Pact has 40 to 50% more people than the Aldemari Dominion, they're going to naturally have more gold. So how would you negate that to determine the difference between gold farmers? Because if everybody on the one faction that's more populated is playing legitly, or the majority of them, how would it be fair to charge them more for global currency if there's no gold farmers to negate that? That's my question.
Honestly, that was one of the problems when I thought up of that system. But I thought up of about 4 or 5 others, and to me, the one that I stated seems the best. Obviously, it's going to affect people who are innocent, but, I was thinking, well, let's look at a real life situation. If this guy has, if this one country has more gold than these other countries, this one country will get everything cheaper because, well, they're more powerhouse than all the others, but in an MMO standpoint, I feel like this should be reversed because, well, there's less people here, then should they be penalized for having less people than this other faction? But honestly, it will affect innocence on the system that I said. It's obviously not a perfected system. I came up with it in about 2 or 3 hours, so it still has a lot of work and chinks to be made out of it, but I just stated the base concept behind the system.
Oh no, and like I said, I thought the system was a good idea. I just, from listening to you and thinking about it, had a few questions as and everything like that. And I think if you went into deeper, or if you had other people collab with you on it to try and figure out the best way to push that system to try and be equal to all parties, that it would work to deter and sort of neutralize gold farming. Just as you said, it would need some work before that was made possible, if that was a route that they would take.
I think if you introduce any multiple types of currency, it's obviously going to affect everybody as a whole. You're going to have the innocent getting affected. You're also going to have the botters getting affected. That's just one of the sides of having multiple currencies, because you're going to have your botters. Again, they're farming that currency. So the people that are getting it legitly, are chances are they're going to get screwed. I mean, that's just the way it is. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying there's no real good way to look at it without having somebody on one side or the other being affected. And I mean, just combating bots is just, it's a tough thing to do. I mean, you think of an idea and then 10 months down the road you're like, okay, they just went around that whole thing that we worked on. Where do you go from there?
It's just like copyright and piracy. It's ever-changing system.
It is, and I mean, you'll never stop copywriting. It's just one of those things, right?
Right. Also, another way I thought of to combat gold farmers is make, like, I honestly like this about a few MMOs I have played. They have a system inside of it where in your crafting, if I craft a sword, there's a percent chance of me actually not making the sword,
Mhm.
as in I failed to craft it.
No,
This would make the rare items rare.
definitely, and that was one of the topics I was going to bring up with the crafting. I'm glad you brought it up. So with crafting, let's talk about crafting for a minute. So let's talk about previous crafting mechanics that we have. So we had SOTOR, we have WoW, we have Guild Wars 2. I mean, they all are big crafting games. Out of those games, what do you guys see being what of those features do you guys see being implemented into ESO?
I think they'll keep a similar, at least, UI and feel as they've had in Skyrim, just as far as the blacksmithing system is concerned. I do see them taking a lot from, I don't know the Guild Wars one at all, but I see them taking a lot from Star Wars just in the sense of disassembling instead of having, WoW's enchanter that can disenchant things for other things. I think you'll see a lot more disassembling, scrapping. I think you'll a lot of, like the other suggestion was, I think you'll see a lot more of chance of rare crafts, crit crafts, as you may put it. I think they're just going to hopefully pick from all of them because I think they have the chance of making a really good new crafting system.
Yeah, I agree with that. So one thing I would really like to see that I loved about the Star Wars crafting system, if they do anything to implement any type of companion base with the game, as you have companions in SOTOR, it wouldn't be nice to have an option to send your companions out to craft stuff and maybe possibly farm for materials for you and stuff like that. That would be a very interesting aspect. Of course, you would have to pay them for the time that they're out and stuff like that. But as I said, I think that'd be a great aspect, and I'd love to see something like that implemented.
If they do that, which I would love as well, the one thing that I wish they would do differently, at least, is they would have the overrule option where if you want to make a sword or make a shield, instead of having to have your companion go out to do it, how about I make it right now and have to not wait a damn half hour for the thing?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Having the option to send them out, it's not a requirement for them to go out and farm.
Right.
But you can say, okay, I'm in the middle of a dungeon. You go out and get me these mats, and then when I'm done, I'm gonna craft the gear. Because if, let's say and maybe they can throw different perks into where if you craft it yourself, you get a better chance to crit on that piece of gear and get better master that item as to your companion doing it.
I love this idea. I mean, at first when you said Star Wars companion thing, I was just gonna slap you because I hated the Star Wars companion going out finding your stuff. But I thought about it. I'm like, that sounds like a good idea. And this is gonna tie into Almerish's comment about salvaging and failing on items. So let's say you have a companion, and if you're a crafter, he's then considered your apprentice. So obviously you're a better crafter than him, but you're teaching him. So you let him go craft it. He obviously sucks, so he has a higher chance of failing on crafting the item, but he does have a chance to craft it, so it saves you the time of doing it. And he can level up, but it takes twice or 3 times as long because, I mean, he's an NPC. It should take longer, so it's just easier that way as a whole, right? If you do it yourself, you level faster than the NPC. But if you fail, I don't think it should just disappear. I think you should have a crap item put into your bag. So if you craft a sword, it should say a U sword. You crafted it in a big giant U instead of a straight sword because you're dumb. But you can salvage it. You get 30% of your materials back or some form of that. I was very angry when World of Warcraft crafting system, all you had to do was sell your items. I mean, it just sucked because you made no money back. They sold for pennies compared to how much it cost to make. So having that salvage item, I think, or salvage feature, I think is going to be a huge advantage if they do it.
Also, another thing that they could do with that, if he fails to create the item, is put some of the materials back, but maybe diminish them. So if it took 10 of copper ore and 10 leather scraps to make a sword, if he failed, say you get half of that back into your inventory or something along those lines. That could be another option to explore.
Yeah, like I said the option of items actually failing because one of my more recent MMOs I've played is Phantasy Star, and in that system, I'm talking about 2 things here. In that system, you had a chance of failing, and you would get no items back. This was very very upsetting, actually. So if they gave you some materials back, maybe like you destroyed a sword, but you salvaged what you could before you completely destroyed it, before you completely screwed it up, and you get like maybe 30 or 20% back, like you said. But like what I really enjoyed in Phantasy Star was you could get the materials yourself, come up to your companion, which was inside of your home, and you could give it the materials and give it a list of items to make, and it would be running those items. If you gave it 24 hours worth, you could come back the very next day, and it would be all completed. Allowed you to go out and farm a little bit more, and also gave you a good place to store some items for your like minerals and whatnot. Store items that he could hold on to and make. And the more complex the item, because the more items you had to make, the longer it took because you had to go through a sequence of making items.
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, if you have a companion or if you have an apprentice, I mean, they should have their own inventory as well. I don't see why they wouldn't. So you can throw all the metals, all the scraps, all the leather straps, or whatever else you need, the wood, onto their inventory, and then they can craft using what they have. And again, you can also use them as a mule. I mean, there's a lot of MMOs out there that have companions that do absolutely nothing, but they use them as a storage mule. So I think that's a cool idea too.
And obviously, it cannot be like, oh well, I buy this companion, and he can carry like 5 bags worth. No, he should only be able to carry like one, and then you have to purchase more bag slots, and then you have to actually purchase the companion bags themselves, so that it's not like an instant, oh, I have a 60 slot companion.
No,
Yeah.
right. You should have to work your way up. When you get a companion, he's an apprentice. He's complete shit at what he's doing. You have to help him train to get better. You have to purchase certain things for him to get better and stuff like that. So, and that should go along with weight capacity, inventory space, and stuff like that. You should have to go out and purchase that stuff so he can carry more weight and stuff like that. But also, I think you should also sort of like guild banks and personal banks. You should have a inventory option at your residence when that launches, sort of like a warehouse or something where you can store your inventory. So it's not taking up everybody's space, but it's not accessible to you unless you are at your crafting station at home, or if you go back and get it and bring it to the crafting station that you're going to be at.
So on this topic, we know housing's not coming out at release. It's hopefully coming out shortly after. How do you guys feel the inventory system is going to work? Do you think personal inventory is going to be very similar to World of Warcraft's bag style, where you have 4 bags, you can just increase the bags? Or do you think it's going to be similar to Star Wars, where you have 1 bag, but you can increase the slots? Or do you think it's going to be Diablo style, RPG style, where you have 1 bag, and that's it?
I think it's going to be none of the above. I think it's going to stick to the Skyrim-based inventory, where it's based off of your weight capacity.
I agree. I agree 100%.
Sorry. With that being said, Dark Age of Camelot had Diablo-style inventory, where you had a set number of slots, but it's the only game I've ever played, aside from Skyrim and other Elder Scrolls games, that has that carry weight feature. You can become encumbered in Dark Age of Camelot. So if I was a weaponsmith and I had to purchase 5,000 pieces of iron, I would probably be encumbered walking incredibly slow, if not at all. So with that in mind, you can still have the encumberment feature. And
It's not just about the encumberment feature. It's about just, I think it's a very good control of items instead of saying, oh, this 2-handed axe only takes up 1 square. And I know that Diablo 3's inventory feature does cover that a little bit, but without having to count squares or play the puzzle game and have them puzzled out right. Oh, well, I have enough squares for this item, I just don't have them all in the right shape. It's just a simple, this weighs this much, you can carry this amount of weight. I think it's preferred for the game style, and I hope they keep it.
Yeah, I hope they don't do... Now, when I said Diablo style, I was saying, okay, you had 28 slots, but that's it. So it's tied to your character screen. You have 28 slots. That's it. I didn't mean that your sword takes up 4 slots, your whatever takes up 6 slots. Each item would take up 1 slot or something similar to that. That's what I meant. Sorry, I should have clarified that.
Well, then, based on what I was saying, I think that this goes to just saying that I think it's better that the big fat two-handed sword is taking up more space than the health potion that's in your bag.
Yeah. I love the way that it works in Skyrim and things like that, because it kind of makes it a little more realistic. Though in real life, you're not going to be carrying a battle axe, a sword, a bow, a gun, and all this other stuff. But it makes it a little more realistic because it adds a weight capacity to the weapon or pot or anything that you're carrying, and in order to carry this stuff, you have to build up your endurance, your strength or whatever to carry extra stuff. So that's the system that they should keep, and that's the system that everybody who played in an Elder Scrolls game is familiar with. So they should keep it.
I believe personally that they might do a something along the lines of an Ultima Online and World of Warcraft hybrid system.
So you think it's going to be
I've never played Ultima.
Ultima is an incredibly old game, actually. It's considered the first great MMO to ever exist. But in Ultima Online, you had a bag, and inside the bag there was icons and whatnot. The more items you put in the bag, the heavier you got. You could have separate bags themselves, and you can put separate items within separate bags to get more organized. However, you had a weight capacity, and also you could overlap items in your bag, so it also became a hassle in actually finding items because you had to be actually organized.
Yeah, it sounds like a very complicated and messy system.
Actually, it was relatively good because you could stack, like, if I have 100 potions, I could stack 100 potions on top of each other, and it would only appear to take up one slot, well, one position in the bag when it's actually taking up, like, 100.
It does still sound very similar to a current Elder Scrolls game, just without the separate bags.
Yeah. So, I don't know, because when Glandict, when you were saying you kind of think it's going to be very similar to the Elder Scrolls games, do you think it's going to be in the menu system, like you're going to have to pull up a menu, go to inventory or something like that, or do you think there's going to be a physical bag screen?
I think it's going to be in the menu system. I don't think they want to have the UI clutter. I mean, you're going to have your quick slots that you can bind your potions to, and you just better have it set up before you start your fights.
Though I do think that they'll have the option to hotkey your inventory to something such as B or I key or whatever. With an MMO, hotkeys get involved and stuff like that. So I'm sure they'll give you the option, if it's not already hotkeyed to a specific key, that you can press the B key and your inventory will pop up, or you'll press the I key and the inventory will pop up, and you can look through the inventory rather than having to go to a menu.
Actually, on the subject of hotkeys, I've been meaning to bring this up in the Tessoff forums, but do you believe that they'll have like a hotkeyed system where I step out of combat and I need to quickly switch roles from my battle mage to my healer? Do you believe that they'll have like different armor, weapon sets hotkeyed, or do you believe that they're gonna not have it hotkeyed and you actually have to enter your inventory and equipment and actually manually change it?
Well, with the way that games are going nowadays, the majority of MMOs, WoW, SWTOR, whatever, have inventory management to where you press one button and you can switch out your styles of gear. I've got a feeling, to make it more friendly to users and less of a hassle, that they're going to include that feature, though having it be optional. Me personally, I know I found it a hassle to have to go through my inventory and swap out every single piece of gear when I wanted to go from tanking to PvP or something like that. So I kind of actually like the inventory system where you can swap it out via a hotkey or something, or even a UI icon or something of the sort.
I definitely think they'll do that, mainly because they've already done that in their past two games. Now, Oblivion was just that you could switch between two weapon sets, but it was still very easy. But with the way Skyrim allowed you to favorite anything, whether it was your shouts, spells, weapons, armor pieces. Like, you could change out armor very quickly, very easily, on the fly. So I definitely think they'll have that something like that right away.
The equipment managers, it can definitely be interesting. I do know that they'll have macros. They've already said that they're going to, not macros, but keybinds. So that itself will be there. So as to what you can keybind, I don't know. I just wanted to cut in here. It's 10:30, so I want to give away the first Humble Bundle. The way I do my giveaways, I have a program, or it's an add-on for Chrome, that will take, it'll select a random person through the viewer list. So I'm just going to do that right now. And our next topic, just to go on top of this, I do want to talk about the social networking in video games. So Choco Jet is the random person. Choco Gel, actually, sorry. If you're in chat, just say something so I know you're there. If you're not there, then I'll just pick someone else. It's sad, though. You're not following me. I'm going to cry.
Your hat's still tripping me out, though, dude.
Dude, I love my hat. My hat is ballin'.
It's not itching?
It is. Oh, you have no idea. I'm pretty sure the bum I stole it from has lice.
Well,
Yeah.
those Canadian bugs.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with Canadian bums. Alright, apparently he's not there, so we'll pick somebody else. I'll give him 10 more seconds. Give him 1 minute.
Well, while you're waiting, I do want to say one quick thing about the hot swappable. I don't think they'll need to do macros for swapping out gear. I mean, even if they do a simple favorite system to how they did in Skyrim, but allow you to link multiple items to a favorite instead of having them to do them individually for a quick switch out, I think would be perfect for how that game's played. Did you play with how that works at all, Kurth?
I haven't, no. Digger66 is the next person.
Oh god, that's me. I don't want it.
Do you have Steam?
Yes, I do.
Alright, I'll send you a message on the TESOF forums with your code.
Alright.
I will remove you from the list so you don't win again. Alright, so let's jump back on topic onto the inventory, because I'm really curious as to what you guys' thought on this. So, Glenn, you feel it's going to be slight menu based. I feel it's going to be tied to the character doll. Altair, you think it's going to be what? A menu as well?
I think it's going to be menu with the option to hotkey it or have it already hotkeyed.
Okay, so if you hotkey it, what pops up in your mind? Like, what do you envision? So let's say I hotkey it to I.
Right.
What happens when I hit I?
And so instead of having to go menu and then select inventory, it'll just automatically pull up the inventory menu.
So you're thinking it's going to be, again, on the side, you scroll up and down through a text list?
Yeah, so it'll look similar to the way that Skyrim is, but it's not going to be a bag setup.
Okay. And what about you, Almersh? What do you envision when you're playing this game?
Oh, I envision a hybrid of three things. I envision that they'll allow you to have an option of three different choices. I believe they'll have an option where if you don't want to enter a text-based screen like Oblivion and Morrowind and Skyrim have all been like, that you can change the option to, instead of showing a text-based, they show like a bag with your items going down in your bag. I believe they might do a hybrid of giving you the option of which one do you prefer to see.
I would be fine with that, a choice. I think either way, I don't expect it to be a system that they expect you to use on the fly per se, like with just going back to Star Wars or WoW, or assuming Guild Wars is the same way. If you forgot, oh shoot, I didn't put my potion on my bar, let me quick go into my menu and just use it quick. I think they're going to try to get away from that a little bit. I mean, with being able to quick link everything else. So even though it's not a single player and it doesn't pause, I think they'll still keep it that the menu is something that, you know, you want to be in a safe place to use.
But you don't see that being a hindrance, though. Like when you, you know my opinion on Skyrim. You know a lot of the features in Skyrim I despise. You don't think the menu idea is a little bit of a hindrance though in an MMO, especially let's say you're in PvP. You don't see it as a hindrance at all?
Well, not a full-out menu like they have in Skyrim. Maybe just a more detailed character sheet that includes all your information type of dealio. I think that would be fine. As far as, but what would you need to go into anything like that while you're PvPing?
Well,
that you can't favorites or quick link or anything like that.
I see your point on that. Like, I mean, there really isn't anything other than your healing pots, your alchemy buffs, stuff like that. But it's hard to say. Every MMO I've ever played has had a visual inventory system. So, just the idea of the text one kind of deters me a little bit. And again, just off topic, I just want to say Choco Gel just finally said something in chat. He's talking about if we know anything, if there's going to be a stat rechange or a class rechange or a stat reset points. What do you guys think? Do you guys think there's going to be something like that? On the topic of stats, though, is there going to be a stat-based system in the game?
Well,
like obviously you have your strength and your dex based on whatever, but like talent trees.
Well,
stuff
there
like that.
is. I think they'll, like right now, Skyrim has talent trees, but the talent trees are weapon-based. You know, you use your one-handed sword enough, you can unlock different abilities with your one-handed sword. I think they'll branch off of that a little bit. I don't think they'll do exactly that, just because I don't think it gives enough options for an MMO. But I think that all of your talent trees or any like specs or whatever you want to do it is going to be weapon based or something like that. I don't think they're going to be so much as class based. From what it sounds like, the classes get certain set abilities. You can use so many at a time, and that's it.
I want to say something here. On the subject of stats, I do know a little bit of information on this. They haven't talked about it a lot, but they have said that kind of like in Skyrim, the more you use the weapon or the armor, the further it progresses. They said that this will also be implemented in the Elder Scrolls Online, so this gives everyone fair play, as in a mage using a two-handed sword will have the exact same two-handed sword talent path as one with one who's a warrior. But there will be little deviations because he is a warrior. He'll have different abilities than the mage because obviously the mage is a spellcaster. And also, they have said that as you get further along in your system, like, let's say, like, I don't know a good example off the top of my head, but there's a system, and then nearing the end of the system, they'll have it branched off. Like, you can go one way, or you can go the other way. Or you could just continue that middle and be average. But, like, one way, it's kind of like your frost spell. It's like a frost ball. Do you want it to explode and do a little bit of area damage, or do you want it to be contained and hit only one person and not like explode and hit many people around you?
Yeah, so that sounds to me like an improvement of what Skyrim used, and that's like to a point, not completely, but I like that. I like that, you know, as a mage you can work on your abnormal type of abilities, so I'm glad that they're doing that.
And at level cap, do you guys think that'll continue? That you'll still be able to progress in the side ability, so a mage using two-handed sword, stuff like that?
I do. I think they will have the jack of all trades. I think, you know, you may level your mage as a standard mage, but at level cap you get bored, you pick up a two-handed sword, you start swinging it enough, and you become good with it. I think that you'll definitely be able to expand.
I love that idea. I mean, the worst thing in any MMO is hitting level cap and going, what do I do? Guild Wars 2.
This is speculation on my part, but I can foresee the Elder Scrolls Online doing this. Like, let's say you have a mace, you use this mace, then you work on your sword. I do foresee them having a system in place where the longer you don't use an item or armor or weapon or whatever, the less efficient you get at it because you're obviously getting out of practice.
I think that would be interesting, but I think it would also have to work with time played, like not like in a sense, if you're just not logged on for a month, you don't come back and you're just an idiot with a sword. So they'll have to rule that out if they do that. But how would it work if your talents are based on your weapons? Are they going to take talents away from you, or are you just going to do less damage? I think it's a good idea, but it'd be interesting to see how they would do that.
Um, I'm drawing on my information from my good old times in World of Warcraft when it was brand new and I couldn't get past level 40. But like in World of Warcraft in the very original, I forget when they took this away, but there was weapon skills. If you were let's say, a paladin, and you use the mace all the way throughout your career, then you get a sword that's better than your mace, well, you had to actually go out and farm because your sword level was level 1 because you have never to use it. Therefore, you did less damage with your better item because you had basically no idea how to use it.
Yeah, I like that system. I was actually kind of upset when they took it out of WoW, but I like that system. I think if they implement that, that would be great. Um, and stuff like that makes it so you have to go out and farm to ensure your weapon skills are on the up and up. But it also gives you the option to, as Skyrim did and Talents did when I was last played WoW, you could specialize in axes or swords or maces and stuff like that. That would give you the option to specialize in that stuff.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely give you your ability to increase your crit, increase your damage with certain weapons and things like that. But you also have to keep in mind, as far as weapon skills are concerned, is that a good percentage of your skill is going to be, is your reticle on the enemy, and are you actually hitting them? So I think that it's not going to be as simple as the WoW weapon skills were, which, again, as far as WoW is concerned, I did appreciate those. But I think they're just going to have to focus on just you choosing a certain tree. Like right now in Skyrim, for example, your tree is just one-handed weapons in general, and then it branches off in 3 different sections for axe specialization, sword specializations, and mace specializations, and I think they'll do something like that again.
Yeah, I think they're going to keep it a lot similar to how Skyrim is now, but maybe add kind of like take it to a different type of video game, Dragon Age Origins. It has 2 separate talent trees, 2 separate types of talents, and then every time you level up, you get a certain amount of talent points that you can use for strength, willpower, dexterity, and things like that. So you get those that you can spend that help you increase weight capacity and stuff like that, sort of how some of the people in chat were mentioning. You get to upgrade Magicka health and stamina and stuff like that. So you'll have that option, and then also you'll have the option. You'll get a point or two to get increase your archery or increase your sneak capacity and stuff like that. So I think that's how they're gonna implement that.
Yeah, I love the idea of having weapon skill points. I mean, it was great in WoW. Obviously, WoW's system had much to be desired. There was a lot of features that were in it that just sucked. For example, like Bean said, you can't level up characters. Back in Vanilla, if I had to level up my axe, I would pay a hunter 150 gold to stand there for 3 hours while I just auto-target his pet. I mean, that got me up, so it was a glitch, but it worked.
It was about the only time a warrior ever wanted arcane brilliance or intellect, because I don't know if you remember, but back then, higher intellect increased your weapon learning capability.
Yep. But yeah, like I said, it's definitely going to be an interesting twist because you don't really see it that often in an MMO. But here's a question for you guys that have played Skyrim and other games in the past. there is a cap. Obviously, it's somewhere along the lines as to what your weapon skill is, right? Like it's not infinite. Like you can't go on forever. There is a cap.
The level system worked in two ways. I mean, just talking about all experience and things like that, each weapon, not each weapon, but each skill category, one-handed weapons, two-handed weapons, blocking, destruction magic, enchanting, like any of those, had a total of 100 skill points. Well, skill ups, I should say. And at every 10 to 20, you unlocked a new level in your tree that you could move up into. But to actually move up into the tree, you had to use your skill points that you acquired from actually reaching different character levels. So it worked in two ways, but each subcategory, to answer your question, had 100 levels, I guess you can say.
And also to touch on what Glandict was saying about the different the different parts of the skill tree, with how many variations there were in Skyrim, if they keep something similar to that in Elder Scrolls Online, it's going to be very hard to find somebody who is spec'd the exact same way. Because in the one-handed tree, you branch out. The first one or two are obviously always going to be the same, but then you can branch out to the left, up the middle, to the right, and there's all different options that increase armor penetration, that add fire to your weapon, or stuff like that. So there's all these different options that you can choose, and almost every person is going to choose a different path, and not everybody is going to be the same. But to touch on what was asked in chat about skills being increased by players, I don't think they're going to include that. I think your skill ups will have to be done on NPCs. Yeah.
I'll disagree on that
think
aspect.
I do too.
Again, the reason I disagree on that is because they are allowing a level 1 to go into round versus round, world versus world, faction versus faction. From level 1, it just basically specs you up to cap level. So I think you'll still be able to level up your weapons in there. Now, the amount of damage you're going to do is going to be next to nothing if it's a very low leveled weapon.
But also keep in mind on the next comment about getting buffed up to level 50. From what we know, all they're doing to buff you up to level 50 is they're just increasing your strength. They're just increasing your magicka or something like that. You're not getting the skills that you would that a normal level 50 have to be put into those things. So, yeah, you're getting your stat increases, but you're still going to have very few weapons, in a sense, to deal with.
Yes, it's going to be very similar to what Guild Wars does with its boasting system. You'll get bumped up to the level required for it. Your base skills will be the base skills that you would have if you had no armor or anything on. So what will happen is, say you start off at level 1 with 50 strength. If you were to wear no armor, at level 50 you would have 500 strength, for just fictional numbers. So what will happen is, you'll be level 1, you'll jump in, you'll go to 500, but whatever armor you have, so if you have a piece of armor that'll give you plus 5 to strength, you'll have 505. So obviously you'll be able to compete, you just won't be able to compete against a solid level 50 straight up. It'll be a tough fight.
Is this over serial PvP?
We're just discussing the boasting and weapon skills leveling up on player versus player. So here's a question for you guys. There's obviously multiple different types of weapons. You have your axe, your hammer, your broadsword, your bastard sword, your two-handed great swords. What is the difference between, let's say, what's the difference between the hammer or a sword? What's the difference, other than speed or amount of damage it'll do per hit?
It's, if I remember 100% correctly, a mace has a percentage chance to bypass armor. The axe has a percentage chance to cause bleed damage, just a dot, and then the sword has the crit capability. So, as far as Skyrim was concerned, those were your three differences, that the weapons actually affected your target different.
Okay.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, that's how it it worked. So if you wanted to do more damage a little more often, you would, depending on your playstyle, use a mace for the armor penetration, which you penetrate the armor, you gain more damage, or you could use the dots to do more damage over time or whatnot. I think they'll also keep something similar to that.
The reason I'm asking is, yeah, it was bugging me. The reason I was asking was because Matt Fear is the main developer behind this game, and he's also he was one of the main producers of Dark Age. And if you ever played Dark Age before, you have many different weapons, many different types of armor. Each type of weapon had a different advantage to different types of armor. So I was just wondering if that was something that would possibly be in this game. I'm actually going to put a link in the chat just for anybody who didn't play Dark Age will be able to see what I'm talking about.
I definitely think it will be. I mean, if that's something that they liked in Dark Age, it's something they've always done in, well, at least in the last two Elder Scrolls games. I mean, you're not going to really want to use a mace on a Roby, a Clothy, because there's not a lot of armor to penetrate. You want to pull out an axe or pull out a sword. And so they've had other games, and if DAOC has had it, I definitely think we'll see it in the online game.
If I remember correctly, from the older Elder Scrolls, I believe there are also specific types of weapons that were more damaging towards a certain sort of mob. Like, let's say skeleton, a mace hurts it more than my sword.
And that makes sense to me because, I mean, a mace will do technically a crush damage. I mean, it's crushing the bones, whereas a sword's going to do a slashing type of damage. So, I mean, slashing bone, it really doesn't do much. So that.
Yeah, I didn't know that much. Yeah, I didn't remember that much. I just remembered the bleed and the crit effects.
And that's exactly what I was talking about. Was in Dark Age you would have a hammer or a mace that would do a crush damage. You would have a rapier that would do thrust damage, so it's like a poking. Swords obviously did slashing. So different types of armor had a benefit or a disadvantage to those types of weapons. So having that, if that is in the game, I mean that just made me even more of a fanboy. So.
Actually, on the subject of weapons, do you think they'll add some weapons that have been never before seen in any Elder Scrolls game?
I hope so. I mean, they have a lot of models to go off of that are really, really awesome, I think, but I do think they have enough room to add a lot of nice new things, so I definitely hope so.
I really hope so. I mean, the game's 1,000 years before Skyrim, so I mean, it's technically an era and an incredibly new zone that's never been seen except for in the DLC that's just released. So I definitely hope there's going to be new content that no one's seen before. So people they have that wow factor. I mean, you go kill a boss and you see this big ass sword, you're like, holy crap.
Well, the other thing I liked about weapon models, just on that note real quick, is that in especially Skyrim and Oblivion, not all of your weapons were pretty and shiny and nice. You had rusted weapons that you had to use. They had the crappy weapons, and they weren't completely trashable like they are in other MMOs, so they have a lot more to work with.
Yeah, but what I was mentioning on the weapons, I wasn't talking about weapon models or different weapon names or whatnot. I mean, specifically different weapons. Like, a scythe has never been in any Elder Scrolls game. Would it, appear in the Elder Scrolls Online?
I would say it has a chance to make an appearance, but it would fall under a specific category. Like, it would fall under a sword or some form of that. Or maybe not a sword category, or maybe it'll just fall under two-handed weapon. But then again, I guess if they do introduce the different types of damage by weapons, so crush, slash, thrust, what section would it fall under? I mean, it's a scythe.
More slash, since it has a blade, in my opinion.
Yeah. Choco Gel made a comment about he's right. Your quick slot your action bar will have two main buttons. 1 and 2 will be for your weapons. As to if you have a one-handed weapon or if you have a two-handed weapon, if they change, I don't know exactly. I believe it's set that 1 and 2 are specifically related to the weapon you have in your hand. So if you have a two-handed weapon, 1 and 2 will be related to your two-handed weapon.
I mean, if it's anything like Skyrim, you were able to block with your two-handed weapons. So I think they will still keep that to be able to bring your sword up for like a big two-handed sword for your block. So I bet you your right mouse click, your second quick slot will be for that.
Oh, actually, on the subject of this, I mean, it's appeared in the forums, and I'm saying my opinion. Dual wielding in Skyrim, you could not block at all. Previously, every single weapon that you had in the Elder Scrolls, you could block with. You could be running around with a single sword, you could block. You'd be running around with a two-handed sword, two-handed axe, you could block. You'd be running around with a shield, you could block. However, the moment they introduced dual wielding, you can no longer block because the second trigger is now your other sword. Do you think they'll add blocking, or do you think they'll just make a new subcategory, parry?
I would hope you'd be able to parry, but I mean, with that being said, it's really hard to parry with dual wields.
It's also hard to control parrying if all of your attacks are there's no auto attack, there's no auto combat. You're attacking, so how are you going to parry? I mean, is it just if you attack at the same time you parry? Because they do kind of have a parry system like that built in. You can smack swords if you're both attacking at the same time.
Like, oh, it's hard to say because I mean, if you're dual wielding, you could technically right click and put your swords across each other to parry. Like it'll stop a blow, but I don't know. That might be an action bar ability.
And based on Beanie's question, I do agree with Chocogel's response that they will keep it like that, but I also don't think they'll keep it exactly like that. I don't think they want to limit two-handed weapons, like two-handed sword users, from being able to do any kind of magic abilities, so I think they will expand on it a little bit.
They haven't really talked about that very much, but I do know in the action bar, besides the ultimate and the potion slots, every other of the 5 slots can be any one of your skills that you have.
Where did you see that? The reason I'm curious is I saw a video that said each button, like 1 and 2 is for weapons, 3 and 4 for something, 5 is your potions or something like that. Is that what you meant?
No, I mean, you got 5 slots. These 5 slots are by themselves. These are your skills. You can have maybe a fireball skill on 1, and then you can have a sword on 2, and then you have another sword on 3.
But what's 3? I missed something here.
The action bar has 6 buttons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 6 is the ultimate ability. And then there's also a potions section of this as well, which is on your action bar. And then your 5, interchangeable, however you wish to set up your 5.
But are 1 and 2 automatically your mouse clicks? Have they talked about that at all?
What they have said about mouse, really, is that your 2 triggers are your 2 weapons. If I right-click, it's my weapon. If I left-click, it's my shield or whatever it is in that hand.
Right.
Weapon skill, like your class, your skills can involve a weapon, but they can also be magical at the exact same time. Like, I know for the, what's it called? I forget what it's called. But there are 2 currently confirmed classes, and one of them is a very warrior-based, and the other one is like warrior, taunt, stun, grab, pull, and etc., etc. Well, the other one is while you deal damage, you can also heal your teammates with their abilities. And like I know for one, there's like a smash ability, and then there's also a chain that reaches out from your hand, grabs them, and pulls them to you. And then there's also a ability where you flick your sword, and like that arc expands and it deals fire damage to the monster it catches. And then there's a spell that I know the other class had, and it'll go and hit all the people around you basically, and deal healing to each one of those. Now, we don't have much more greater information on this, but, dog, get out of my lap. But, anyway, what was I saying? But I do believe that these abilities, as in, I shoot the chain out of my hand, this is obviously probably going to be a magical ability. I mean, shooting a chain out of your hand, this is not going to be a stamina-based attack.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. Well, no, see, it's hard to say because I mean, you can technically carry a grapple with you, and if you don't have a lot of stamina, it takes a lot to throw it. But what you're saying is very intriguing because from everything I've read and learned, 1 and 2, like everything, your whole hotbar is perfectly assigned to you. You have 1 and 2, which are weapon-based attacks. Now, they're completely optional as to what you want to put in them. Like you click on them, it'll give you a list of stuff that'll fit in there. 3 to 5 are just other types of attack that you can put in, and 6 is your ultimate. So, from what you're saying, it sounds like you can put your 1 and 2 on 3, 4, or 5 if you wanted to.
So far from what I've read, yes, what I'm saying is correct. But also, on the subject of the ultimate, if you don't know, there's going to be a finesse system, and when your finesse reaches full, you can use your ultimate, which we have basically no knowledge of at all.
Well, we have no knowledge as to what the
having no
ultimate's going to
knowledge.
be. We actually had a discussion on what the finesse system is. Do you know what? Like, are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, but they're very vague when they explain what the finesse system is. They say when you successfully do attacks and whatnot, where they're to the greatest ability. However, they have not said specific, like, oh, well, if this guy does a great swing at me and I can block it, do I get a finesse point? They have not said if this is how it works or not. They've just said if you complete something successfully in the best manner for like your class, it gives you finesse.
Yeah, exactly, and it's exactly what you just said. So what they have said is, if I'm getting attacked and if I parry or block it, and it puts the NPC or the person off balance, and I follow up with the correct attack, I will get a finesse point. If I actively dodge, roll out of something, and come up and do the associated attack with it, like it's all combos. So if you follow up with the proper combos at that correct time, you will get finesse points. Finesse points will actually increase the experience and the loot that you will be getting.
Two things I want to say. Loot, if you don't know, will not be like, there's one loot for a boss. You'll have your own individual loot. Each player will have their own loot. But also, I want to say something along the lines of abilities. They have confirmed that you can actually run in this game, which I am very happy to hear.
Yeah, running is a key in an MMO.
No, I mean like in World of Warcraft, by default you run all the time. Very few people actually know how to walk, because you actually have to go through your key bindings in order to figure that out, and that's a long, complicated list. But there's actually, you run, you use up stamina. The more you run, the less stamina you have.
Well, it's also nice that they're putting that in because they did a good job in Skyrim with linking the sprint, I'll put it as, with abilities. You know, if you sprinted and charged up your sword at the same time, you know, you did certain types of damage or had chance to disarm or something like that. So they made the fights a little more interesting like that, and if they can keep that, I'll be happy.
Yeah, this all kind of ties into what we were talking about before about the deterring bots and stuff like that. So having the finesse system and stuff like that, I think having the loot specifically tied to the finesse system, I think is going to be a really good feature.
I also like how they're not very deviating from the previous Elder Scrolls, and previously in all Elder Scrolls, the stamina is incredibly important, and in this one it is as well. If you block, you lose stamina. If you run, you lose stamina. If you attack, you lose stamina. In all of those cases, you lose stamina and you deplete it. The same goes for the Elder Scrolls Online, where, let's say I block in, oh, actually, something really interesting about block, now that I'm thinking about it, you can block a slow effect. Therefore, CCs can be blocked.
Interesting. Are they going to have they said anything about having CCs, like magical CCs? Or we can have any sheeps?
They haven't said anything like sheeps, but they have said like, you throw down an area effect right here, it's like a hailstorm, this hailstorm CCs you. However, you can walk into this area blocking, and you'll actively block the CC, but it will take up stamina as you are blocking it. So it only lasts for a certain amount of time until you run out of stamina, obviously. And then also, you can sit back and just plain old walk, and people can be running towards you. You'll have more stamina, therefore, your character will be able to do more than the character who came running at you.
That's interesting. I just want to jump in here. It's 11:10, so I just want to do one more dice roll, and we'll see who wins. Hey, it's Choco Gel. All right, Choco Gel. I know you're here this time, so I'll PM you a Steam. You use Steam, right, Choco Gel? Wait for him to reply. All right. So he uses Steam, so I'll PM you a Humble Bundle package for you. All right, let's get back on topic. And if you get a chance, click the follow button right above the video. I would appreciate that. Shameless plug is shameless.
Yeah, on Bean's comment, yeah, they've had that at least in the single-player games. It's something they do want to keep. I don't know if they've said this or not, but I almost kind of think that invisibility, like your rogue, for example, I don't think they're going to have complete invisible characters. And I could be wrong. I think that your sneaky rogues, you will have to actually be sneaky and be in sneak mode and just make less noise. Do we know exactly if that's true or not?
We don't know exactly 100% sure. However, if you do look at the introductory video, they do show a glimpse of what it looks like from the player's perspective of when you're sneaking, which is you're shadowed, and there's also like black mist rolling off of you. So I'm not sure if you'll see a more muffled version of that as a character in PvP, or if the, like, I believe, like, to me personally, I believe it's going to be looking like that for everyone. However, the greater your sneak ability, the greater they can't see you, basically making you more invisible. However, they cannot make it so that it's completely, completely invisible to someone like they did in World of Warcraft, because then, oh, I'm invisible, I can walk all the way up this tunnel, and I can take the keep. No, that shouldn't really be done. Because then you can go all assassin.
I think stealth is definitely going to be a huge aspect, but I think it's going to take a lot to get it fully stealth. Specifically for the PvP side of it, I think there's going to be... basically, I'm just going to disagree with what you said about the being completely stealth. I think it'll be completely stealth up to a point. So depending on how good your stealthing is, will determine how far away they can see you. So if you have high stealth, it'll be like 5 or 10 yards from you, as long as they are in front of you. If they're behind you, you have no chance. At least that's what my interpretation of it. They, again, like you said, they haven't really announced exactly what it's going to be like. And
I kind of hope there is no pure stealth. I mean, what is a sneaky person nowadays? It's a person that knows how to, or not nowadays, but in general. It's somebody that knows how to hide in the shadows or anything like that. I mean, we're talking about a more interactive gameplay here. I hope they keep the sneak system maybe a little more invisible than Skyrim is now, which is not really invisible at all. It's single player. But I don't want to see people completely invisible. I don't want to see a WoW style stealth system, or Star Wars, or whatever games you fancy.
I really like the stealth idea though. Like, I mean, I love being able to hide. A lot of this passion kind of stems from Dark Age. I don't know if anybody here in the chat or in the stream has ever played Dark Age, but I mean, camping mile gates and stuff like that. That's one thing Matt Fuhr has actually said is going to be in the PvP. Is there's going to be choke points where stealthers are going to be able to sit and wait for the slow ones to catch up, and they're the ones you want to gank. Like, I mean, you always gank the fat and slow ones, right? Especially in zombies.
Right, and I actually pulled up a deal here. It's an entire article talking about one of the classes that the people were allowed to play as when they went over to ZeniMax. It's the Templar, and the Templar is a offensive healer. And I have the link up. If you want, I could send it to you. I'm not exactly sure how you want me to do that.
I don't know why. For some reason, the chat's not allowing links, and I have links disabled. Like, I have it enabled that people can put links in. I don't know why.
Let's, any links you guys want to post, throw it on our Facebook page.
Either, yeah, on the Facebook page, or even you can link it in Mumble, and I'll throw it in the chat.
Actually, I have no idea how to do that.
So you just go to facebook.com/clearingcallgaming and just post it there.
That works too.
Trust me, I don't have a Facebook.
So you're like me. But yeah, in Mumble, on the if you bring Mumble up the left side of your screen, there's just a chat window which looks like a connection log. You can paste it into the bottom there and link it there, and Garb can send it out.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so if you guys read chat, they're talking about the invisible. Bean's got a cool idea about invisibility potions. That's a cool idea. Again, I'm still a little hesitant on it, just because I love the sitting at a mile gate, a choke point, and just waiting for the slow ones to run by and then just popping them. What was this that I just linked? Oh, this is the Templar. Okay.
While being invisible in that aspect, Kurth, is a good idea. I think there should also be a way for somebody to pop you out of stealth or invisibility mode, and not just by area of effect. I think if you're in stealth mode, if somebody has there should be an option to increase stealth detection, to be able to detect if you're stealthed or something like that, to give somebody a competitive edge against someone who's waiting to gank them if they're farming or whatever.
I agree. Like, I mean, definitely having a form of stealth detection, detect stealth, or just seeing invisibility would definitely be a very good advantage for anybody that doesn't want to spec into stealth. Because stealth is essentially for everybody if they work on it, right?
I just linked another deal. This is to the other playable class that they were given at the pre-event covering and whatnot. It is the Dragon Knight.
Well, one thing, my biggest problem with stealth in any MMO right now is I understand what stealth is supposed to mean, but if you're standing in the middle of a field out in the open, I don't care how sneaky you are and quiet you are, I'm going to see you. So just talking about the real aspects of what stealth can be, maybe at least just have a stealth system where you have to be not necessarily behind, but at least next to an object that you're quote-unquote hiding with, instead of being able to just stand in an open area and not be seen.
Yeah, I can agree. I mean, if you're standing out in the open field and don't expect to be seen, I mean, that sounds kind of silly. But yeah, like, I mean, if you're standing next to a tree or standing in a forest, I mean, if you're stealth, your visibility should be pretty close to nothing, if you're good at it. I mean, if you're bad at it, you should just be this big white figure that just stands there and go, hey, look at me, I'm hiding. But on the topic of Facebook, what do you guys think of the social networking integration into ESO? I don't know if anybody here saw the video I did make. I made a video about the feature that is very underpublicized. social networking in Elder Scrolls Online. When you create your Elder Scrolls Online account, it's going to ask you, hey, do you want to allow us to check your Facebook or your Twitter or your Google Plus for friends that might also be playing and add them to your list? What do you guys think of that integration? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad?
I believe that it is interesting, but looking at me, I have a Twitter which I've only made so that I can do the Elder Scrolls Online contests and contact them and whatnot. And so I have absolutely no friends. No one actually even knows about my Twitter. And the few people that I even do don't even know the name of my Twitter or even the email that I use because I don't want them to figure out my stuff if it ever gets hacked. And I don't even have a Facebook. So, I mean, there's absolutely no reason for me to have this social networking. However, I do realize this is a big part of everyday life nowadays, and I believe that this will also allow you to understand, oh hey, this so-and-so friend of mine also has it. But there also comes into the problem all those people are like, oh, I want every single friend that sends me a friend request, da-da-da-da-da. Then you know, like, almost no one there, and then you have this long friends list, and you're like, I don't even know who these people are.
Well, I agree in that aspect, but I also think that integrating the social networking into Elder Scrolls Online can be used as a great way for advertising, like how we advertise our Clearing Call Responds and some of the other stuff that we do. Could be a great way to advertise it via in-game. Maybe you can post a in-game screenshot directly to Facebook or Twitter or something like that, or post from Skyrim's Elder Scrolls Online saying we are getting ready to do a PvP event, post it to your people on your friends list and whatnot, and interact with people on your Twitter page and get people involved in the community with you. So I think it could be a great aspect as far as advertising your guild, your community, and stuff like that.
For the guild aspect, they have mentioned about it. The guild, from what I've heard, the guild can go and type a message into guild message, which will be broadcasted to everyone. And not only will it be broadcasted to everyone, like officer or whatnot who has access to this, not only will it be messaged to the people in game, it will also be messaged to their Twitter or Facebooks that are connected to your account, so that like if they check Twitter every hour, they'll know, oh hey, my guild's going to go on a raid at da 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 time, and even if they never got on that day, I do know they said that they were doing that feature.
Yeah, and that's the kind of feature I'm looking forward to. One of the big features about this, and one of the reasons I'm on the bandwagon for it, is it's a very common thing for me when I play an MMO. I use Facebook a lot, I use Twitter a lot. I don't use much on Google Plus. I really should, because Facebook is starting to become very horrible and very commercial. But I'll say something on Facebook. I'll say, hey, I'm playing this game, or some sort of achievement will pop up saying I just did this. And one of my friends will message me like, oh, you play this game too? I'm like, yeah, I do. Didn't know you did too. So having that integration of it going in and checking and adding all my friends to my list, I think is a great feature. But with that being said, I can't read his name. It's in a weird color. But the one guy in a weird colored name said
Rapid
a lot of
Mirror,
people
I
on
think it is.
Facebook. Sorry, what was that, Glenn?
It's RAPIDMR, so I don't know how you want to pronounce it.
All right, it's the one we don't know how to pronounce. Said that a lot of people on Facebook, and I'll agree to this, and I actually am a victim of this, have a lot of friends on their list that they don't know. And it's because of Facebook games. I mean, you've got to have friends that play the same Facebook game, so you add random people from around the world just to increase your score in this game. So I'm going to have a bunch of random people I don't know, I don't ever talk to on my friend list. So that's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt.
Well, I think in that there'll be a way to negate that. Like in Facebook, you can create different groups. You can create a family group, a friends group, and stuff like that. And they have groups based off who you work with and things like that. So you should be able to integrate that. So if you have a friends list on a specific group in Facebook, you should be able if they're going to integrate it the way I'm hoping, you should be able to select in-game to post only to this group or to download only this group rather than syncing the entire Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another feature I am looking forward to is the guild integration. So if you do have a guild Facebook group, and Clarion Call does have a guild Facebook group, that's it's open to whoever wants to join it as a member. It's not obligated, but when I create Clarion Call in the game, or one of the other officers create Clarion Call in the game, it'll ask, do you want us to go check this Facebook page and invite all the members? I mean, that's going to save all officers in almost every game that has, or every guild that has Facebook, a huge amount of time.
Yeah, like I said, I think the integration into using social networking is great. Social networking, as we've all stated, is huge in today's society, not just in everyday life, but in gaming. Video games and guilds and everything promote all types of shit through social networking, and having that integration, regardless of how simple or whatever it can do, is going to help various guilds out as far as recruitment goes, as far as keeping their fan base and their guild base informed as to what's going on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they tie in like achievements and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of my games posting to Facebook saying, "Hey, look what I did." That's kind of annoying.
I hope they don't do that. I mean, I'm bad. I haven't been talking much about this topic because I am the worst, because I hate Facebook. I mean, you already know, Garb, how long it took me to get onto Clarion Call's Facebook page, and that's just me. This feature's not going to bother me in any way. I'm just probably just going to end up opting out of it, but I do think a lot of people will love it. But I hope they keep out the random nonsense posting.
Right. I also want to add a comment on this, which is another concern I see with this. They've stated that they're going to have a system that they're going to try and make it so that you spawn near your friends and whatnot. However, if you have like friends and they won't even show up on your phased world because you're in a RP world and they're a PvP world, obviously you're not going to normally see them in game. Does that automatically make you like, oh, all of a sudden I have this random person going through this place and it's just like a kind of after image and he can see me too, but we're in neither world? And also, will it spawn me near my friend who's in PvP and I'm in an RP version of the server? Will it spawn me where he is, and then I'm like, where am I? I don't know. I don't see anyone here. Why'd I get here? Which is also why I've stated that they actually need an option where you can say, log in where I was previously at, or log in near a friend.
Yeah, the logging in near a friend or joining a friend's phase, I mean, it's a great idea. I just foresee issues with people with, for example, if you have 100 people on your friends list, how does it know which ones to join with? Because the priority is guild, then friends list, right? So if you have 200 people with your guild, is it all about close proximity? And I mean, if it is close proximity or close to the zone, what's going to happen at release? I mean, you're going to have a couple million people playing this game at release. There's going to be a lot of people in the same zone.
I know they said this, but they're designing their system to hold about 300 people, but on screen at one exact time. However, they're going to limit it to about only 200, and that's the maximum because of PvP.
That makes sense. So I like that idea. It's just I just don't know how their system's going to handle having a lot of people on the friend list, a lot of people in the guilds, and then figure out which zone to join.
I think there'll be a lot of phase switching, similar to even how Star Wars was when it first started, just not being in the same coruscant as somebody else. I think that's something that they're not going to be able to avoid. There's going to be a lot of it.
I've actually thought about this. They may actually also make it so that there will be multiple phases. Like, I want to be in a PvP style area, but I also want to be in a RP environment as well, so I'm in a PvP RP environment, not just a, straight up PvP environment. They might make it also multiple phased like that. And also, like, one of the things you said, like, well, I don't know if you mentioned it, but, nah, I'm not going to get into that. That's completely off topic.
Well, now I'm curious. You can't just do that. You can't dangle a carrot and then
Multiple
blow it away.
guilds. Multiple guilds. I honestly am very happy about multiple guilds because, well, let's say I have one friend. This one friend joins this guild, but I'm in this guild. You always come to, oh, well, do I want to leave my guild or do I want to stay? But with multiple guilds, you can go, oh, well, I'll join. They know I won't be very loyal to their guild. I won't be able to really progress, but I will be able to go in guild events with my friends and whatnot, and it won't really raise that much suspicion.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because I actually wanted to talk about that. I don't know if you saw the social networking video, but I did talk about multiple guilds, and I'm all for it. I love the idea of multiple guilds. My biggest concern, biggest curiosity is how are they going to roll it out? Is there going to be a financial, like not a financial, a currency-based system, sort of like what Guild Wars 2 has? Is there going to be, if there is, are you going to be able to buy perks for your guild? Is it going to be guild leveling? Is that going to be based on how many people are in your guild, how much experience is earned? That's where my concerns or curiosities lies, because if you have multiple guilds, the currency is going to go down. How do you represent certain guilds? So, Guild Wars 2, I think, did a great job with the influence system. So, if they do something similar to that, I'll be relatively happy.
Actually, while we're on the subject, I've thought of this. I haven't really stated it anywhere, but I've thought of it. I'm not sure how well received it would be. However, I've been thinking, how about, you know how there's the Mages Guild, there's like the Fighters Guild, and they have their own separate building. How about we have our own little phased world where we have our own guild, like player guild building, where you enter it, and then you choose between your guild list which guild one you want to enter. And then you can progress it further, as in like buy extra rooms. Like it's just a standard hall with a banker in the corner for your guild bank, and then like a repair person. And then you can progress it further to like have an enchanting table, an alchemy table, a blacksmithing area, etc., etc.
I actually like that idea. That's similar to the talks that they had in Soltor about a guild fleet megaship. Having something like that adds to the sense of what's the word I'm looking for? The sense of meaning to being part of a guild. So I really agree with the like a guild hall type of thing, and then you have to, as you go along, you have to upgrade your guild hall to have blacksmithing tables and all that other stuff. And you should also be able to maybe have achievements up on your wall. So if you kill a boss for the first time, you should be able to get a copy of his head staked on the wall, kind of like how you can get Mac Therodon's head and put it on a stake in Hellfire Peninsula. You should be able to do other things like that to show some of the achievements that you've done and show off. So I think that would be a good idea.
I think one of the crafts should be taxidermy.
That would be interesting.
But no, I'm very interested that you actually ticked off on that, because I also had the idea, like, you have one room, and in this room, there's like plaques on the wall and it states like great accomplishments that you have completed, like, oh, I defeated like the hardest in-game raid boss there is, and I have like a statue of him because he's obviously the hardest in our guild is completed. But I was also thinking that if you're in multiple guilds, couldn't you also limit the access that people have towards your guild hall? Like, if you know this one guy has no loyalty to you at all, could you just block him from going to, like, you're in this one room, you have to go into these other rooms in order to access other stuff, like the guild bank, etc., etc. Can they block access to those specific members? Kind of like how World of Warcraft did, where you can set which rank person can enter which tabs.
Well, I think they'd do something like that to match similar to the WoW Guild Bank and things like that. If there's say a guild warehouse or something like that, only certain levels would have access to it. Or if you wanted to create like an officer's lounge or a members only lounge or something like that, I think they'll have that option to where, based on their rank, they can only go into a certain part of the building, and the door won't open for you unless you're at that rank, and no key or anything you try can break that door down.
Well, that's kind of similar to what Guild
be a
or
great
Dark
idea.
Age had. Sorry, Glenn, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think it'd be a great idea to have an officer's lounge or, anything like that.
Yeah, like that's what Dark Age had. Dark Age had, same as every other game, guild-wise, it had ranks. But based on those ranks, you had permissions as to what part of the guild house, or even if you could even enter the guild house, permissions. So I really hope they do something similar to that. My biggest concern about guild housing, two biggest concerns is how they're going to roll it out with the phasing. We had a huge discussion about that, which actually was really fun. But housing has always been that carrot that is dangled in front of every single MMO. I mean, Star Wars did it. WoW sort of did it, and they're doing it again. They dangle that carrot. Oh no, player housing's coming out. It's coming out. It's going to come out shortly after, and it never does. So I'm a little hesitant to believe it comes out. But Bethesda has had housing in their games before, so I'm still hesitant, but I'm more prone to liking the idea.
Yeah, I know in Ultima Online, housing was one of the first things that was implemented in the game, but honestly, I'm gonna go on a little bit different subject here, but it's more fast travel based right here. Like, I was thinking maybe you have to go to your closest major city, and you have to go into the Mages Guild, and then you have to pay in order to step on like a transporter to transport you from one city to the next, because obviously you can't open up your menu and go fast travel to this city. That's not going to be really possible, because in every Elder Scrolls, time passes because you actually walk there. However, in an MMO, will it go, oh, I'm sorry, you have to wait 3 hours of real-life time to get here because that's what's normal for your character walking? I'm not sure they'll do this. And then also, I was thinking along the lines of Guild Hall. They could have a separate teleport room that's completely free, as long as you're completely free, and it teleports you to your Guild Hall. What's your ideas on that?
I think that idea would be good, assuming that is going to be their travel system. I know they've said that they are going to do one, but they haven't spoken about what it might be. And you have a good point about the fast travel system that they currently have will not work in the online game at all.
I just want to cue it. They do have it. The exact same thing. You go to your map and you teleport. It's in the introduction video.
Actually, it isn't, because they never showed him teleporting. They just showed map, and then he showed his cursor hovering over.
True.
But they never showed him clicking and actually teleporting. They just showed the map itself, and then also what it looks like if you hover over an area, where it appears, and what it looks like on the screen when you hover over and you see the title of the city.
True. I still think it's going to be in place. I don't see why they couldn't do it. I mean, it's still a phased area, but you're going to be zoning to that area anyways.
Yeah, but, I mean, the point was, with any other taxi system in other MMOs, time passes, and, the other MMOs have quick ways to travel you. I mean, how's time going to pass? Are you literally just going to be able to instantly jump from town to town to town in Elder Scrolls Online? Because I'd hate that idea. I mean, unless there was some kind of lore reason for you to be able to do that.
True. The travel system in Dark Age was horses. So it's similar to what WoW had. I mean, you had your flight path, you had horse path. So you would go to a vendor and buy a horse, and you'd gallop to a new point. So they might do something similar to that, just to keep, like you said, the time. Like, obviously the day progresses, and Skyrim and Bethesda always does phenomenal things with their skies and their time and their moons and the sun.
No, I want to say something here on the subject of mountains and whatnot. I'm actually pretty angry at quite a few people in the Eldest Testoff's forum, because I repeatedly see people telling other people and misleading them that they're saying, oh, dragons have been confirmed, you're going to actually be able to have a dragon.
Ooh.
No, they've said this multiple times, not happening.
No dragons. Dragons do not exist yet. Well, they exist, they just have not been rampaging
Yeah,
the world.
they've said it multiple times. No, that dragon hasn't come back. The only one still there is Alduin, and you're not going to see him because you're not going to be able to go to Alduin. Now, that actually, they haven't said that you won't be able to go to him, but it actually might be interesting if you can go to Alduin's area, but I'm not sure how they would do that.
I just wanted to answer Chokel's, well, I just wanted to comment on it. Chokel said you can also instantly teleport to a friend's as long as you're not in Cyrodiil. That's fine, like I can agree to that, you'll teleport to it, but that's because somebody's already there, there's already a time place. Whereas if
According to that, what
Sorry,
I've heard,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, what I've heard according to instantly be able to teleport to friends, what I've heard is like when you log in, when they said they're gonna like spawn you near other areas, near your friends. What I've heard from it is that you'll not be able to spawn near your friends that are in Cyrodiil, so you can't just log out and then log back in and teleport to that one guy who's over near this keep, and you're instantly over there with like the rest of your guild, and all of
Yeah.
a sudden, oh hey look, there's this one guy who ran over this hill, and now there's an army coming. No,
That's
gonna happen.
what he said, as long as you're not in Cyrodiil. Because, yeah, that would be totally OP. I mean, you could have one stealth that's just running around and go, hey, guys, there's one guy over here, and everyone teleports to him, boom, dead. That would suck.
The amazing instant army.
Dragon temples they've mentioned, but that doesn't mean the dragon's there. They have mentioned
Yeah,
that there
they've
will
said
be
that
temples.
more specific, it'll only be in Skyrim, but they have mentioned there will be dragon temples in Skyrim, but like, oh, you walk up to this wall, you're not gonna instantly know a dragon child. You're obviously not a dragonborn, and etc., etc. And there will be no dragons there. Now, what I'm really wondering about, how about the dragon priestess? You know, the mask and whatnot, and that you get from killing the dragon priestess. Could they possibly be raid bosses and whatnot?
I'm interested to see what's going to be the first raid bosses. I mean, with being a section of lore, any other MMO or even Star Wars, well, not necessarily Star Wars, but WoW when it first came out, you had ideas of what raid bosses are going to be because it's following a predetermined storyline. This is new territory of lore for them. We know little about this time and era, so it'll be interesting to see what the raid bosses are. Yeah, the priests could be raid bosses, but we really just don't know.
I made a comment, I can't remember if it was on Tamriel Foundry, if it was on Tessoff. I really hope that they don't reuse skins for raid bosses and just double or triple the size. I really hope they have 100% unique bosses. Like, it'll suck if I see a level 4 mob that I was killing leveling up and he's now a raid boss. That would kind of suck.
I don't think they will. I think the introduction video showed well enough, even for just small party bosses and things like that, specific models for the bosses that are very original for them.
They also showed that the boss models will be used again, but I believe there will only be one boss, and when the boss model is used again, I believe this means that that this boss is a recurring boss that you never actually kill, but just kind of flees away and you get like a treasure chest or something. Or is maybe just like a taunter in another dungeon, which you then progress to a raid and you can actually fight it.
Yeah, so what Rapidmir said is that raid bosses will progress the storyline. But how does raid bosses progress the storyline? So are you thinking raids will come before the end of the story? Or do you think raids will come after the story? I'm just guessing because that's what he said. He said raid bosses progress the storyline and thus be related to the same way as like Baal.
I want to say something here. So on the subject of PvE, raids have been confirmed, and they have been confirmed that they will deal with the lore. However, in order to actually get to a raid, you have to be level 50. You cannot be any other level. Therefore, it is in-game content.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
sure
it
it'll
would
be.
suck to have a level 10 in there that's boosted. I mean, that's just stupid.
I think what he means is that it does in a sense culminate this current storyline, but it's something that will help you link to other future storylines. But I could be wrong.
Yeah,
Oh, don't
that's
even say
kind of what I believe.
SOTOR progressive raid. No. I lost a little respect for you right now.
He hates the SOTOR storyline and how they have nothing to do with any of the other single-player or leveling storylines or anything else to do with the game.
Yeah, I looked at SOTOR, and I looked at it a little bit, and then I said no, and just kind of turned my back on it. And then I told everybody, this is not going to be that big of a success that people are leading to believe. You know what? A few months go by, and I said, told you.
Well, I think there's different reasons for that, but not to get on that topic. It's a good game, but I'm not happy with the stories of the operations.
Yeah, something in many things in SOTOR just weren't as good as people wanted it to be, and also wasn't up to standards. So it just kind of, that's what I was saying. It had too many crucial, fatal flaws in it, which I hope Elder Scrolls Online won't.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say. I mean, Bethesda's a great company, so I mean they're backing it. So I don't think Elder Scrolls will have the issues SOTOR did. But with that being said, I mean I have to comment on SOTOR now. SOTOR's it's a phenomenal game. It's got 100% great story. I mean, it's done phenomenally well. It's a very good single-player game. The raids are good. The bugs are what killed it. I mean, the bugs, the community support, I think, is what killed that game. But again, we're not here to discuss SOTOR, so we could be here for hours me discussing it.
Yeah. When we're on the line of lore, I wanted to say a few things that people seem to be getting pretty wrong, and they've actually mentioned it in a very casual way that you probably won't pick up unless you're paying attention. They have mentioned that Todd Howard has told them, you have free reign of lore. You do not need to contact us about anything with lore. I'm getting further into this. They picked the section of their timeline because there is basically no lore for that area, so they're free to run with their lore. However, they also go back constantly to the Bethesda Elder Scrolls lore people to make sure they don't divulge from the lore and that they understand what they're doing, and that Todd Howard can point out tips and that the lore people over there can help them as well. So they are trying to be as good with the lore as they possibly can, and they are constantly going back and talking to the lore people, looking up references, and doing the research.
Yeah, I mean, you have a good point that they have the open palette as far as progressing the story is concerned. But yeah, as long as they stick to where things come out in the end and at least what we know already, then I think they have a great opportunity for a good story and some good raid bosses.
Well, that's about the only place where they really have to talk to Bethesda about the lore is the big main aspect of it, and obviously the lore of the physical areas. But I mean, anything progressing, they can make up as they want. I mean, it's 1,000 years before Skyrim. It's 1,000 years before anything really, other than the books that were written. There's what 30, 40 books maybe in the games, maybe more.
There's about, if I remember correctly, there's about 300 passages
I was way off.
in different books, but those are passages. I mean, they're not like books dedicated to the time. I mean, it's like, oh, well, this like 2-sentence deal right here is concerned this time period, and the entire other book's about something else completely. That's what I meant by passage.
Okay. But yeah, like I agree. They have free reign of it. I mean, it's 1,000 years. They can do whatever they want, as long as it's somehow at the end of the game. Well, I guess even if there really is no end of the game, we'll tie back into. Well, what's the Oblivion? Oblivion came before Skyrim.
No,
Morrowind.
It progressed in this order. It went Arena, Daggerfall, and then it skipped a bunch of years, and that's basically Molded Bog area. And then it went to Morrowind, Oblivion, and then after Oblivion came Skyrim. That's the sequence of order in the timeline, as far as to my understanding.
Yeah, I never played anything pre-Morrowind myself.
You would actually be surprised the number of Elder Scrolls Online. I went back and looked at it because I wanted to look at the timeline, as in the Elder Scrolls series timeline. There's about 40 Elder Scrolls games.
Really? All I knew was the Arena
Yeah.
Daggerfall and the other three.
Those are the 5 main Elder Scrolls games. But then there's these other Elder Scrolls games that are like exploring Daggerfall, exploring Morrowind, etc., etc., and other things that are little offshoots but still made by Bethesda and still contribute to the lore and everything that no one's ever heard of. Me personally, I've liked Elder Scrolls ever since Morrowind, and I've been an avid follower, and I'd never heard of any of these until I started doing research for a wiki post that I wanted to do.
It's funny because I was a huge fan of Daggerfall. I didn't like any other ones. And again, it's not the game that I didn't like. I didn't like the playstyle.
But yet you want to go to a game, an online game that has that playstyle.
I'm a huge MMO fanboy. I love MMOs, and I'm not a big single person game. So I don't like the playstyle of that game in a single player. But I love like I said, there's an MMO right now in closed beta that I'm in, and I'm pretty sure you know which one it is. It's a phenomenal game. I love it. Like, it's got the same combat style as what Elder Scrolls Online is introducing, and it's fun. It's just really fun.
I'm in a actually closed beta for a MMO, and once I reach past the introductory phase, the game just gets boring enough that I've actually.
Hey, I'm in one of those ones too. It's
But-
kind of boring.
Yeah, it's BP if you understand the abbreviated form of the title.
I don't know. It's not the one I'm in.
It's a science fiction space. But yeah, they closed about a year ago into closed beta, and I was in it pre-alpha, so I don't know. But like on the subject of PvP, I want to make a point. Are you happy that they are bringing back the old open world dungeons? I miss my time at EverQuest where I walk into a dungeon and I can be by myself and I can join up with a party of, let's say, like 3 or 4, and there's like 2, 3 other parties in there, and I can just group up with those people and actually go in and actually play through that dungeon, and I don't have to get a group together. I can just walk into that dungeon. I know there's like 2 or 3 parties right there all the time.
I love open dungeons. I love it. I think they're phenomenal. And the whole reason the open dungeon's in there is because of Matt Fuhrer. He came from Dark Age, where it's an open dungeon. It's called Darkness Falls, and I really hope they do something very similar to this. So the way this one worked was you had realm versus realm. So it's the same concept as what they're introducing with the faction versus faction. Depending on who owns the most part of it, content-wise, would have access to that open world dungeon. But with it being open world, you had all 3 factions were able to go into it. So I had my side had its own side of that dungeon, but they all converged in the middle. So we could run down to the middle and then branch off into the other sides. So what we would do is go out, take specific keeps so we could take over the dungeon, zone over, hit the dungeon, run through to the other side that had it, and just brawl everybody that was in it. I mean, it's just so much fun. So I hope they have something very similar to that.
Actually, while we're talking on the subject of something like this, there's like big talking in forums. I have no idea where you're getting this information. I haven't seen it at all. They're saying that no player can enter another player's faction. That might be possible. I haven't seen anything against it nor for it. And I've asked people repeatedly, and they haven't been able to give me a reliable source. But one of my big problems with that is PvPers. Oh, hey, I am this Evan Hart Pack guy. And then, oh, hey, I did this really awesome Evan Hart Pack. And then I hear they have this really awesome Outdoory Domain, and I know where it is. But I'm Evan Hart Pack. I can't go over to Outdoory Domain. I don't have all character over there that's high enough level, not geared enough. You know, what do you do in that situation? You're cutting off players from content right there.
Well, the way it's going to roll out is it's identical to Dark Age, and I really hate comparing it to Dark Age because nobody here's played it, but it is almost a mirror image of the game. So you have your three factions. If you play Aldemary Dominion, you cannot in any form take that character into one of the other three factions. You can't. It's impossible. You'll be able to get to their what's called border gate, but as soon as you get close, you'll instantly die by the NPC guards. But you can roll one of the other factions. You just will not be able to join the same phase that your other character was in. So let's say there's 10 phases. Your Aldemary Dominion is in phase 3. Your Ebon Pack character will not be able to join phase 3. It'll join one of the other 9 phases. So you'll still be able to experience that side of the content, just not with your High Elf or your Bosmer.
What is it? I have looked at Dark Age of Camelot, but I haven't really gone much into detail. But I was gonna say something. Oh, I know. I hope y'all do realize that they have confirmed guilds. If you create one for the Aldori Domain, Ebonheart Pact, and what's the other one? Daggerfall Covenant also have the exact same guild created over into those others so that they can also join. However, they have stated that you cannot communicate cross-faction. Therefore, if I'm in the Aldori Domain, and there's also a Eberhard Pact of this guild, if I post something on the Aldori Domain side, and it's a raid notification, oh, we're going to raid this keep at blah 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 hours, those people in the Ebonheart Pact will never see it unless they have an Aldori Domain. And then I also believe, if, they'll know, oh, well, they might go and tell, however, you won't really know for sure how strong the other characters are unless you have, your own little spies on those sides. So, I was just throwing that out there if you haven't known about that.
Well, how is that going to work? So, say myself, Glandict, or Altair create Clarion Call on Aldemary Dominion. You say it's going to be also on Ebon Pack and Daggerfall. Who's in charge of those ones? Or is the ownership of the guild bound to that account?
No. From what I understand is that each player, it won't be account-wide. I won't be able to create a new character and instantly enter the same guild. I believe you have to, for a guild, I believe you can actually, invite an Ebonheart Pact to the guild, and this can be your, an alt, or let's just say Altair over here is in the Ebonheart Pact, and you're in the Aldori Domain. You can send him accept, and then promote him, and then you can create your own character. He sends that, and then you go back to your character, and you can make yourself at the same status as an owner on that side. But I believe the owner has power over all of them, but more than likely it will be branched off into, leaders of Aldori Domain, Ebonheart Pact, and Daggerfall Covenant.
I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like that. I have to ponder on
But
that.
I don't think that you can just randomly go, oh, hey, I want to join the Clarion's Call. That's a solely Aldori Domain in the Ebonheart Pact. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think you'll get some notification of oh, hey, I want to join your guild. Can you send me an invite? Some form of notification that this person over here wants to join.
Yeah, I have to agree with Rapidmer. It kind of does break lore. I mean, if I have a guild or a clan of people that want to compete against Cyrodiil in Aldemary Dominion, how does that coincide with lore that I can somehow invite the Ebon Pact to join my guild, but not actually join my guild?
It's basically the same thing as having it in, let's just use World of Warcraft. There's a Alliance version, and then there's a Horde version of the exact same guild. They're both separate entities, but they're the same name, and they fall under the same leadership, basically. However, they're completely separate entities, pure chance coincidence, basically.
See, in that aspect, that makes sense. But if I'm playing Aldemary Dominion, I should not have access or the ability to invite an Ebon Pact guy to my guild. I mean, I don't see how the communication can work there.
Yeah, I don't know how they're doing this, but I do know once you make one guild, it's going to be 3 faction wide. How they're going to work with this, or if they're going to keep it, I have no idea. However, they have released and said that they are going to do that. I have no further information because they have said very little concerning player guilds.
They have, it's true. I love the idea of having, if I create Clearing Call, having that name reserved on all 3 sides. And if your permissions are account wide, so if I am an officer in Clearing Call and I go and roll on Evan Pack, I'm automatically an officer in the Clearing Call guild over there. But again, it's its own identity. It is in no way tied to the Eldamari Dominion one. That I like.
Right. I believe you have to be of, like, the owner or of an officer status, and when you go over being that status, you're, like, either automatically accepted or you're given a notification. Do you wish to start Evan, like, da-da-da on the side? But that notification will always be there for you to take up, because the guild will still be there, and I believe it'll be account bound as to, if you're in an officer or anything above an officer, basically. Because then, if you're an officer, you're a trusted member. However, if you're like an officer on this side and you come over to this side, you have to agree that you cannot divulge information about the other's plans. Basically, you would have to have a trustworthy. You would basically have to have a trustworthy people if they're cross faction, or you would have to pay attention to, oh no, this guy's over here, and I know he was over here first. Dunk. And or maybe they might do some way of you can limit the access of certain people, like if this person is an officer on this side, he's a member over here. However, he still cannot see what we're doing since he's an officer over there. They might do something along that lines. You just never know.
Yeah, like I said, I like the idea. I don't like the idea of them being tied together, though. It just seems weird, again, as a lore aspect. But on the topic of PvP, and I want to hear Altair's and Glandict's opinion on this, in PvP in Elder Scrolls Online, they're going to, now, not at release, but sometime after release, they're going to introduce the becoming of an emperor. But they haven't said exactly what that means. From what I understand, from what they have said in very limited text, is it's a single person. One person can claim to be emperor. How does that going to work?
I know. This is very interesting, actually. I'm actually looking forward to this. Alright, let me first throw this out. Emperor is a title that can be easily taken away very quickly. It's more bragging rights than it is anything else. Now, here's the mechanic. It's basically just bragging rights. You can't do anything. You're crowned emperor, but you're just that title. You have no ability whatsoever over emperor. However, they have said this is the system. This is, Choco Gel is basically saying, but this is the system how emperor will be decided. You'll be ranked within your faction. You who did the most work in your faction, as in you're the best PvP person in your faction, you have contributed the most to the cause, like you've taken over the most keeps, you have done the most work for your faction in PvP, and if your faction is winning in the PvP war, you'll be crowned emperor. However, if you slack off, maybe the person right below you will suddenly become emperor and you no longer have it, or if your faction starts losing because you have too big of a battlefront, then you're no longer emperor because someone else in another faction is.
Now, how does that work, though? Because, again, from what I've read, in order to be claimed emperor, you have to take a certain keep.
No, it's, let's say, here's the line of Cyrodiil. One faction can have 10%, one faction can have, 49%, and the other one can have, 51%. No, that doesn't work out right. But basically, whichever faction controls the most numerical number of land throughout Cyrodiil is considered the strongest faction and will have the Emperor. So if you have more percent of the land than any other faction, then your faction is the main faction and the best ranking person can be named Emperor.
I still think you should have to be able to own the main city. I mean, that's the idea of the Emperor, is based out of the main city. I feel like that should be a requirement for that.
I'm actually not even sure if you can take over the main city.
Well, I thought that was the whole point of the Emperor was... see, from what I understood, is one person can be claimed Emperor, but it's a person that helps take over the main city. As to who that person is, I don't know. I haven't read anything as to how they determine who it is. But from everything, like I said, from everything I've read, it's taking over that main city. And the reason it's not at release is because that main city isn't being opened up yet for PvP.
I don't believe you'll be able to access, because there is their own separate lore for Mordred Ball. Basically, his main headquarters is the central city of Cyrodiil, because that's where like the person who brought Mordred Ball into the game is. So I do not believe that you will be able to do that. However, what they have said, that being title Emperor, is if you control more area in Cyrodiil than than any other factions and the person who did the most. Basically, they said whoever was winning the war, whatever faction was winning the war, will have one person titled Emperor, but this title will change, and it's your faction. If you're winning, they'll select the most contributed player to the cause.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting feature. I don't really see a point behind it. Like, really, what does the Emperor do as a PvP character? I don't know.
He does absolutely. Basically, let's just say this guy played 24 hours straight, three days straight, and the Alliance took over. He's contributed more to the cause than this one guy who's only played 8 hours a day and off and on between the days. But Emperor, he can do nothing, basically. It's a bragging right. It's kind of like in World of Warcraft. I do all of these raid achievements. I get this title. This title means nothing. It just means that, oh, I accomplished this feat.
Yeah, but the Emperor title can be changed from person to person. You don't keep it. That's the thing that I'm really interested about. And Beener, the combat that they were doing was just one of the random keeps that you can take, which we actually had a discussion about. What was it, Glenn, last week? If you're still here, you're still here.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
It was last week we talked about how the keep objectives and everything work, right?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on
believe
this
so.
whole Emperor thing? Like, to me, it just seems a little favoritism.
I hope something, even if it is just a title and just a pretty thing, I hope it's something that's not necessarily, not harder to get, but something that's easier to keep. Like, it'd be annoying because in any type of PvP system, you never really have a one person that's that much better than doing that much more than anybody else. I feel like based on what we're talking about, it's going to be a title that's just constantly jumping between like the top 5. Whoever, got into the most amount of action in the last 5 minutes, they may take it, and so on and so forth. And also, are these ratings something that resets after you log off, after you zone out of the PvP zones? And again, I go back to, I hope that there is actually some sort of main objective as far as it. I think the idea is cool, even if it is just a title. I mean, you are the only person that can have the title at that point and moment ever. So that is still really cool, in my opinion, but I think there's a lot of bugs in the works.
Yeah, they haven't really said that much, but they might do something along the lines of a, once you're crowned Emperor, that title is yours for 24 hours before it can be taken away from you again. So it might be something like a grace period of you get it and you can go out and bloat, or maybe they'll do something along that lines. But we just really know that because that's what I told you is everything that I found out about the Emperor title itself.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that there's very little information as to what the Emperor title is going to be or what features are going to be on it. There's a couple of comments in chat that I want to touch on. Bernard said something about the Emperor getting buffs for the realm. There is going to be a system very similar to that, but not based off the Emperor title. Based on how much your realm or your faction is doing in faction versus world RVR. Your realm itself will get points. If you played Guild Wars or Dark Age, you'll know what I'm talking about. So if I own, say for example, our faction owns 3 keeps. Those 3 keeps will provide bonuses to health, strength, or crafting, or something like that. So there will be worldwide bonuses. So the people that are out doing PvP can actually contribute to the PvE players, and the PvE players can contribute to the PvP players by going out and helping them. Rapid Mirror was saying, what did he say? Or was it Choco? Let's see what he's saying. I gotta scroll up and find it. Where is it?
Well, Rapid did make a comment relating to Emperors about straight from the main site, stating specifically that the Emperors gain special abilities that increase their prowess on the battlefield. Whether it's just PvP related things, I do hope they've said it, so something I think that does need to be in it for that section.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. And again, it's going to be interesting to see how that's all based upon. I just really wish there was more information on that aspect of it. Oh, he can't link. I don't know why. I'm going to try and look into why that he can't link, or why anybody can link. But no, that is on their main site. I did read that is on their main site.
Yeah, I haven't seen it myself, and that might be useful information to me because I am wanting to put together a wiki, which is what we know so far of the Elder Scrolls Online. I've been delayed quite a bit about that. I'm hoping to get it out by the end of next week.
Oh, looks like Hate might be joining us.
Go ahead and hop in that link there. It's about...
It's deleted.
Oh.
Why can't you mod? Why can't you open freaking things?
Here, I'm going to put it in Mumble for you,
Yeah, I'm gonna
Rush.
look into why that doesn't work. But while we're getting links and stuff set up, it is 12:11, so I'm gonna do one more Humble Bundle package. So we have 7 people in chat. Let's roll the dice. Rapid Mirror.
I've actually never looked at this one in specific, so
Rapid Mirror,
some information.
If you play Steam, I can give you a Steam code for the Humble Bundle package. It's 5 games or something like that. Just something to maybe hold you over until we can get closed beta information out. So if you are interested in that, let me know in chat. If not, I'll roll the dice again and get someone else. But you're not following me. Sad. Hey, Hate.
Evening.
Hello.
Altair, how you doing?
I'm alright. You?
Oh, not too bad. Just winding down for the night. Figured I'd stop in because I was trying to get a hold of Garb earlier on, and he was never around.
Is he ever?
No, never.
No. He is. He lurks.
with a sparkly Santa hat.
So with all this, I mean, I just did the last Humble Bundle, so let's wait for Rapid Mirror to reply. Do you guys have any other topics about Elder Scrolls or anything like that you guys foresee happening, or anything you guys want to talk about?
Not right now. Not right now.
I don't see anything happening with anything that we can really touch base on as far as Elder Scrolls is concerned. We've pretty much discussed everything in the past 2, including this one. Yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but I did have something I wanted to bring up. I might remember later. I honestly forgot.
I do have something I want to bring up that's not Elder Scrolls related. If we have time for it.
Was it the topic you mentioned earlier?
No, this is about the digital X-Pack for SOTOR and what people think.
Yeah, no, like if there's nothing else on Elder Scrolls, I'm definitely up for some SOTOR combo, as long as it has nothing to do with their endgame merger.
Oh, didn't SOTOR go free to play?
It did.
So, on the topic of SOTOR, they just announced that in the beginning of sometime next year, they are going to launch their first digital expansion pack. It's going to have more chapters to your character story. It's going to introduce more on the Hut cartel. It's going to increase the level cap to 55, and it's going to be, what was it, $9.99 for subscribers and $20 for free-to-play members. What are your thoughts?
In all honesty, I think it's a little late for it, and my biggest beef about it, and again, it's not because I hate Star Wars. You all know I'm actually a huge Star Wars fan and love the game. Is the fact that when it was announced at E3, it was announced to be free, and this was after they said the game's going free to play. So that's a little bit of a piss off for me. They came out at E3 and said specifically, this is the biggest free content that any MMO has ever released.
I mean, not only that it's not free and they said it was going to be free, but I mean, if you're a free-to-play person, $20 for 5 levels and a planet, assuming you're not doing endgame, I mean, that's a pretty bad DLC to put it comparably to anything else. I think that's a bit overpriced.
And just because you said a planet, does anybody remember Quest? It was a planet. It had 7 quests, and it was horrible.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what you're getting into there.
Yeah, but the touch on that, Quest was a shitty planet, but they're opening up 5 levels. And to comment on what you and me were discussing on text message the other day, Chris, I don't think it's going to be the first 4 levels are going to be daily quests. If there's 5 levels of content, it's going to be I think personally, a fairly large planet, something comparable to maybe, I don't know, Altair Terrace or something along those lines, that maybe not, the story's not going to suck, but the amount of stuff that you can do there is a lot. Like, I forget the name of the planet because I haven't leveled up a tune in a while, but one planet, I got like 7 levels off of that one planet. It might be something along those lines. Yeah, Belsavis. It could be something long like that.
Sorry, I was just
Even still,
I
that's
love the idea.
$20.
It's $20 for anybody who's free to play. It's $10 for subs. I mean, it should be free for subs because I said that. And I wish I still had that video. Let me see if I can find it. I'll link a video in chat if I can find it. I just gotta pull up my tweet deck. I apologize if there's a lot of noise over Steam when I pull this up. Nope, just one beep. But in this video, if you watch the video in its entirety, they promote it as being 1, free, 2, a full planet, and when he kept saying it's a full planet, I kept thinking Quest and 7 quests. So that kind of bugged me. But yeah, definitely, if you guys get some free time, just check out the link and then give me your thoughts on it. I don't mean check it out like right now, but you can. But yeah, I tossed the link in chat, so anybody that wants to take a look at it, go ahead.
I don't know. Regardless of if they said it was free or not, I'm a huge SWTOR fanboy. I love the game, and I've got one of each character. So I think regardless, I'm still going to get it. I'll pay the $10 and get the game. But I'm...
Do you want to know something that I would totally change my mind if they implemented it? Because they said they were going to implement it into the game, and they never did it. Same-sex romances.
Oh, God.
I think that should totally be in the game.
I agree that it should be in the game, and it is in the game, not in SOTOR, but in one of BioWare's other games, Dragon Age Origins. Same-sex relationships are available in that game, and I think they should implement that. But that isn't something that's going to deter me from getting it or not.
Oh, no, it's not going to deter me.
Me personally, I'm not going to have one of those relationships, but yeah, Mass Effect also did have sort of same-sex relationships, unless you had the PC version and you went into the code and edited it. But I'm not going to have those types of relationships, so that doesn't bother me. Like I said, I'm a huge SOTOR fanboy. I love Star Wars altogether, so I'm definitely going to get it. But I do hope it's going to be great and not some quick, shitty DLC.
I'm definitely going to get it. I mean, if you've been in chat with me before, I've always said that no matter what game it is, if I played it in the past, I will, of course, buy the expansion and play it, and then probably end up bashing it. Mr. Pandaria.
That's what you usually do, Garb.
Hey, WoW's a good game. It's just too old.
No, but I'm not speaking specifically about WoW. It's just after doing a number of games, and you you get the expansion for whatever games you've played, and then you go over it, and then you're finished and either bored or dislike something. So yeah, you hammer it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like what Greg says. I mean, I apparently play games too fast. It's funny because I say that, and I'll disagree to it, but in the back of my head I'm thinking, I might play games too fast. I'm going to be 24-hour stint of Elder Scrolls Online when it's released.
Yeah. I won't be allowed
which
to
will
do
be
that.
streamed.
You need a life.
This is my life. I game for a living.
Or a job.
Yeah.
I game for a job. Hey, I make like $1 a year, so that's enough.
Yeah. That's not even enough to get you a McDouble off the fucking dollar menu at McDonald's.
Hey,
Yeah, how you
I
gonna
don't
pay
want to be
for that
popular and then
processor
be called
motherboard?
Kriparian, so. But let's not bash gamers, so let's not do that. Kriparian's cool. I like him. He's Canadian.
I'm probably in Garbrac, same shoes. I honestly, I pick up a game that takes people like a month or so to beat. I beat it within the first day of playing it, and then I just get completely bored.
Oh, and we're not saying anything bad against it. We just like to bash Garb because it's fun to do.
It's true.
Hey, don't bash the boss mirror.
Well, I mean, look at Far Cry. I beat Far Cry in, 42 hours completely? Like, side missions and everything? I tend to. I do. I'll agree. I play games way too fast.
How long did it take you to finish Diablo 3?
I was six hours behind the first person. But that was cheated. That was sort of cheated.
Let me guess, what's his name? Athane?
He exploited it a little bit too. All the people
yeah.
that finished within the first day totally exploited a few bosses.
No, what he exploited was, donations, basically.
That was King Kong
stuff. No, that's Athane. Athane literally had like 100,000 people donate like $10 to him, and then he had so much money to beat the game, and then also they would come to him, drop really rare items, they would drop him gold and whatnot, and like within a few days he was able to be in Inferno mode solo.
Yeah, like I mean, I was soloing Inferno, 16, 17 hours in? We were on Inferno. But yeah, like King Condor, he got nailed for stealing off his fans. Athane, like you said, got huge donations. Kriparian got huge donations. Kriparian and Krippy were the first ones to do hardcore Diablo Inferno kill. And I like Kriparian. I mean, he's a great gamer. He's a bit of a elitist, to put it lightly. But if you watch his streams from Inferno Act 1 to Inferno Act 4, which I did, he exploited. He exploited a lot of glitches to get himself further, and that's, in all honesty, I don't think it's a legit kill, in my eyes at least.
I know from my Diablo 3 experience when I was playing it, I actually stopped a while. My computer could handle a few bosses that every single one of my friends' computers could not. So I would actually have to literally enter the game and have to fight the boss completely by myself because their computers would not be able to render the amount of effects going on, even at the lowest graphics setting.
Yeah, like when Diablo 3 launched, there was a bit of an issue with a lot of people's computers. I don't know exactly what caused it, but if you put your Diablo 3 folder on your USB stick, you'll have zero issues. Which makes no sense, but yeah, I played Diablo 3 fully on a USB stick.
Yeah, like, I remember in World of Warcraft, the guild that I was in, well, the guild I'm still in, but I don't really play World of Warcraft or any MMO, really, anymore. I just kind of got away from it. I got upset with World of Warcraft, became the best PvE and PvPer in my guild, and I just kind of quit because I reached the end game of the end game. But, what really happened was, he was, basically the second in command of the guild, and me and him were, really good friends. Me and him played off and on with Diablo 3 and whatnot, but there was this one boss, I forget who it is, but you're like in a green mist area, and he does like green fire and everything, area effects. It goes across the entire screen and whatnot. His computer was not able to handle that, which is really funny because his computer handles World of Warcraft better than mine. Computer was able to handle Diablo 3 better than his because he could not get past that boss, so I had to beat it for all the way up until about Hell mode when I just kind of quit.
Yeah, that was Act 3?
Yeah,
No,
I think so. Act 3.
4. No, Act 3. Yeah, it was in the
Yeah, the
keep.
desert. Yeah, the keep and the desert level. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that boss. But Choco Gel's talking about the charge, which would allow for stuns. Yeah, that's one of them. One of the big ones, which is funny because again, if you watch the previous videos of Kriparian's streams, one of the ones he used was standing with Siegebreaker. He's the big boss that would in Act 3, first big boss in Act 3. There was a spot where you could stand and he just couldn't hit you. And I mean, he played a barbarian, so obviously being hit is usually what ended up killing you. But when they patched that in, it was like a month and a half, 2 months in, they patched that fix, and he couldn't do it anymore. He had one of his friends jump in, do it, and then go to Act 4, and then he went to Act 4 with him and saved it. So he skipped a lot of content. And again, that's just why I think it's not a legit kill. But yeah, let's get off topic of bashing people.
Yeah. If you want, I remember 2 topics I wanted to discuss with y'all.
Oh yeah, definitely.
On the Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, let's hit these 2 topics and then we'll call it. I mean, it's what, been 3 hours?
Yeah, it has. It's late in the night. Well, I'll tell them 2 right off right now. Item distribution and mounts. There's obviously going to be mounts. However, no one really knows any information about how they're going to do mounts. Like, how are they going to do it, etc., etc. I wanted to hear y'all's opinions on it. And also, item distribution. It seems more logical to me that if I'm in the Aldori domain and I'm in the elf areas, a lot more elf items will drop instead of, like, imperial items because, it's completely different areas. So, how are they going to, like, balance it? I know they like Skyrim, but that's a single game, and even then, you were more commonly able to find Nord items than any other item.
Well, I remember reading or hearing something, and I honestly can't say where it was, where they were asked that question: if a character that's leveling in the elf areas is mostly going to see elvish weapons, and vice versa for orcs and so on and so forth. And their response was actually pretty much that you're going to be able to find any items almost anywhere. Weapons and armor. Trade, and not only trade, but also just the learning how to make it crosses the world. They feel it's completely normal in their lore to put items anywhere at any time, it seems.
Well, I think they're going to go with the typical MMO rule of thumb is they're just going to have a loot list, and anywhere you are, it'll just pull information from that loot list outside of specific instance areas and raids, because they obviously have their own loot list. But on the topic of loot, I think the distribution system is going to be phenomenal. I love that distribution system.
Oh yeah, I agree. I cannot believe that they haven't done this already with MMOs, because it's a big point. Like in other MMOs where it was constant open PvP, two groups would come in to attack a raid boss, and like everything was open back then, and they would be attacking, and then we want this item. So then they'll start attacking not only the raid boss but the other party there that's also attacking, and then basically it's either the last man standing or the raid boss just obliterates everyone because they stop paying attention to it.
How much of the loot system have you read, or anybody here?
Just I've read some basics about it. Like, I know the loot system will be very individual. Each person will receive their very own loot. Like, it's not one loot and we have to roll like 20 people in this 25-man raid want this one specific item. You have to roll 25 times, and then you figure out who's that and that. But from what I've heard, each individual person will have their very own looting. And I don't remember if this was for this game or another, but I also believe they're going to try and make it more suited towards your person for the loot, like for your class. But in very general, like, the sword, someone might receive a sword, and then you receive a sword that's more magic-based because you're a magic user.
Yeah, from what I know, that's definitely how that's going to... Your items that you get are going to be more focused towards you. Obviously, you're still going to get some junk items, but I think the social loot system is phenomenal. I mean, I love that idea. Being able to go in with 30, 40 people and do a raid and kill a boss and not have to sit there and wait for someone to distribute it, or having to have a range limit on your loot distribution, aka SOTAR. Just everybody getting their own loot bag is, again, very, very, very awesome because it makes it so much easier. And I think WoW actually does that. I haven't done the new raids in WoW. I actually quit Mist Pandaria before they opened them up. So Glandict or Altair, can you guys give me some information on that?
I don't play WoW, so no answer.
It's only in LFR, in their LFR, that they do anything remotely like that. But yeah, you kill a boss in WoW's new LFR with Mr. Pandaria, you either get money or you get loot that is just for yourself. So it sounds very similar to the Elder Scrolls game, but one thing I'd be curious is, what are the chances of even getting loot? How much of it is going to be trash loot? I'd be interested to see that. Or if it's at least that the boss does have a standard loot table, which each person has a chance to get from, or if it's if there's a loot table for the raid itself.
What I think they're planning on doing is they're gonna have this boss has a loot table, and it's like different types of loot that you can get depending on how lucky you are. But I believe like for each, it'll look at your player and look at like your character in specific, and go, well, since you're a Templar, you have a more percentage chance of receiving these items, but you can still receive any one of the other items which are completely useless to you, and you just have to go and sell them.
Yeah, but I mean, their idea is also to not have any gear be completely useless. They want you to be able to use almost any item for any person. So I think that that's going to change how that loot table might work. And also, if you increase the chance of dropping loot for stuff that you'll actually use too high, I mean, how soon are you going to be done with the raids that you're not going to need to go back because you're fully geared? You got to balance that out as well. So, nothing, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, like what I was thinking, like they've said that you can use any weapon and any armor. Even if you're a mage, you can still run around full plate with two-handed sword, go knock your lights out. But I think they'll have like items, but I think they'll try and fit more items suited toward your class. But I mean, there's also like you yourself are like, well, I'm a warrior, but I want to use more of my magical abilities than I do want to use more of my stamina abilities. Therefore, you're going for a more magical set, and those are rarer for you, so it takes you longer. And then also different, many factors can come into play in this discussion here.
I don't know what to say about that one. But I do want to talk. Rapid, I think it was Rapid, made a comment about if there's going to be items in the game that if you don't like them, can you switch the graphic? Glandic, is there anything like that in any of the previous games?
No. No, I mean its skin is its skin. They've had no painting, coloring, or remodeling or anything.
That might be possible. They might be like, they might make a new type of character where it's like, oh, well, you have, like, cloth clothes. You can, like, dye them in different colors, or you have male items. You can, like, either dull them or get them shinier. I don't know how they would do that, but it might be done. I highly doubt it, but it might be done.
I think having, like, again, pulling a WoW term, transmog, I think that'd be a really cool feature. It definitely doesn't go with the lore in any means. I mean, it's just not a possible thing. Or taking a piece of item, salvaging it, and learning how to make it, I think would be a really cool aspect.
Yeah, but you got to be careful with that as well. I mean, because, it's not like, oh, well, I get this super rare raid boss item, I salvage it, and I get this item 5 times in a row, and I salvage it 5 times in a row, and I can remake it now. I don't think that should be possible at all.
I really like the idea of salvaging, though. I don't know. I think salvaging and being able to make the item is an idea that I would like to see pulled from Star Wars. Obviously, maybe not making the exact same item, same stats, because you obviously want your raid gear to be your raid gear. But making very similar items would be, I think, ideal.
Yeah, I agree on that point right there.
On Rapid's comment, well, I guess you just gotta dress to impress. You gotta stick to one and just wear that. I agree that would look a bit ridiculous, but I mean, why would you wear a wizard robe with a big fat plate helm?
Why would
Gotta keep it looking. I mean, I understand why you would, but I wouldn't.
Man, I sleep in that.
I mean, you can also look at it this way. You can run around in armor that you put together that you think looks pretty, but then you can like, oh, I'm going to go on this raid, or I'm going to go somewhere actually where I have to actually be in my real gear. I can switch into that gear because during that raid, no one cares what you look like, just as long as you're able to perform your job.
No,
I care. I actually do kind of care. I'll admit that. But
when WoW came
I
out with
think the
transmog, I was
stats
super
will be
stoked.
very akin to the armor type.
Yeah, I was really happy about it as well, but for me, I basically have only played a tank in MMOs, which I'm actually going to change for the Elder Scrolls Online because I'm more of a stealthy character and a archer. But as a tank, I need a really wide view, so all the characters are really small, so I really don't see the armor unless I'm walking around town and my zoom is in.
Yeah, I'm huge into aesthetics. I mean, when I played WoW, I had to make sure my guy matched. When I played SWTOR, all of my guys matched. It was just, I'm huge into aesthetics, so my guy has to be pretty.
Yeah, my aesthetics, 2 portions of it were completely off. Like, I was doing a very Viking-looking sort of character. However, I was able to purchase 2 items which were no longer made, and only about 100 on the entire server were still in existence. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna put it on my character because they match my theme, as in the color-wise, and I think they look really cool.
Sorry, I'm just reading chat, catching up on some things.
No problem. But I really do think that it probably won't come out in release. It might come out in later date. But I do think it will be implemented sometime in the future of the game. Because so many people will be like, oh, where's my transmog? Da, 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 da. And they'll be like, okay, like, fine.
Like, SOTOR came out with an idea that isn't too bad, where you can unify your colors so everything matches. That's not a bad idea. I mean, you keep the same kind of graphic style of the armor, but the colors will match. So that's a cool idea. That's not a bad idea.
I also remember a thread on Tessoff where they were talking about this, and they were saying in like PvP, when you enter Citadel, it should wipe out what you look like because you're obviously going to be wearing your PvP armor, and a lot of people will be like, I know it really frustrated me at first in PvP, where I'd be running along and I'd be attacking this one guy, and I'd be like, oh no, he's very undergeared, he's very new. It took me a long time to realize who was the actually more PvP'd player, because I would have to go through each player individually in order to figure out which ones had the most PvP gear, because, well, for one, they would hit me more, and for two, they had better resistance to my attacks. And a lot of people actually didn't like that very much, and I've seen many people on Testsoft comment they don't want any form of transmogrification in PvP in Citadel at all.
Just to comment on Chocogel's comment, I think that is a huge advantage to this game, using the same gear in PvE as you would in PvP. I hated when they introduced resilience in World of Warcraft. I mean, I understand why they did it, and it makes sense as to why they did it. It just sucked.
There will be more PvP-oriented items, but I believe they're going to play it off as I deal more damage, basically, because I have this armor. Yeah,
Like, as long as there's
necessarily
not a specific
mods.
stat that'll increase or decrease PvP taking damage. I mean, that's my biggest concern. Like, I understand why it's there in WoW. It makes sense for WoW, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but they have confirmed that they will have more PvP-oriented items and more PvE-oriented items. How they're going to do this, how they're going to do it with stats, we really don't know, but it has been confirmed that they will do it.
Like, Dark Age had the similar idea where you had the same armor for PvE and PvP, but I myself and almost 80% of the guild I had at the time had a PvP set of armor. It was the same stats, like, I mean, all your stats were the same, but we focused on our resistances a little bit different. And again, this kind of ties back into my question earlier about does weapon type affect the amount of damage or anything that you take? Because in Dark Age, on my armor set, I would have a lot less resistance to the faction I was on, because, I mean, why is my own faction hitting me? And focus more on the factions I'm going after. So if I'm jumping into Hibernia, I would focus on their attacks more than Albalon's attacks, because I'm on their land. Whereas if I go to Albalon, I'm focusing on their attacks, not Hibernia's attacks. So I really hope they have that kind of aspect, because it adds a lot more depth to the game and a lot more thought.
Oh,
Later,
I just thought of something. I just thought of something really interesting. I completely forgot about this, but you sparked my memory. They got asked, since you're only going to have 200 people in one area in Citadel, how are you going to do if 300 people want to get into this area? They're going to have different campaigns, which to me will be more along the lines of phasing, but I think they're going to keep people out of this one certain area until the battle's over with. like, oh, I want to go and help, but you're going to be in a different phase and you can't enter this area and you can't really do battle in that area. I think they're going to do something along the lines of that.
I really want to learn more about the campaigns. I can't really comment on it yet. I have two ideas on how they're going to roll out campaigns. I don't know if they're going to roll out campaigns into specific zones, areas. So maybe they're going to break Cyrodiil down to 15 different zones, and each type of campaign will focus on that zone. Or if a campaign is going to be entirely Cyrodiil's massive zone, and then you get to free roam inside that. I don't know how they're going to roll it out, so I can't really comment on it until at least I get a little bit more information on it.
Yeah, I can only put out speculations, but that I'm really not that sure on how they're going to do it. But they have said, there will be different campaigns. But I just thought of something else. Here's something really interesting that I'm not sure if many people know. If, let's say, there's 3 factions in one battle, one faction has 100, the other faction has 75, and the other faction has 25 people, the factions with the least number of people can actually join forces and gang up on the people with the more numbers until it becomes a more even fight.
They can if they want to. I wouldn't say that's what's going to happen. I mean, if Aldemari Dominion goes into a campaign with 200 people, and Evanpack and Daggerfall jump in with 50 people, obviously they can fight each other if they want, but if they were smart, they would focus their attacks and try to kill the bigger people.
Yeah, like they said, I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but they did say that the 2 factions can join forces if they're supremely outnumbered.
Yeah, but when you talk about joining forces and you take keeps and you do all that, who takes possession of the keep? Whose territory is that then considered then? I mean, with the 3A battle, how does that work?
I feel like... you go ahead, Garbrac.
Well, I think it's just going to be strictly personal. I mean, if we're playing Aldemari Dominion, we know we're outnumbered. I mean, we're going to try to talk to Daggerfall if they're the other guild or faction that's outnumbered, and just try to like communicate with them and be like, hey, let's work together and go fight these people. Or I would hold my group back, wait for the big group to attack Daggerfall, go in and start attacking the big group with Daggerfall. And then once they're down, you start picking each other off. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I imagine is going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a built-in
Rapid
system
says.
where people are going to be like, hey, let's merge together and go fight these people. I think it's just going to be a try and communicate across realms and be like, hey, let's go and help these guys. Sort of like in WoW older days where you would run up to a horde like /wave, /point, /kill. Please?
I agree with what Rapid says. I mean, based on the way the PvP system is going to work, I actually foresee it working, the map style and just battles and things like that being very similar to how combat moves around the planet side maps.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of worried on the PvP aspect of this game because they have said that in launch they're really not thinking about having like arena style or battleground styles of fights. They're really thinking about not doing that kind of stuff in this
I hope
game.
they don't.
Yeah, I hope they don't, but many people enjoy that aspect.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, I am actually going to sign out for the evening. It's been a long day for myself.
Later, Glenn.
Hey, Glenn. Merry
Good
Christmas.
night.
Later,
You
Glenn.
too.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting almost 1 o'clock. I think we should probably start wrapping this up. One final question, though, is I want to ask everybody is there anything you guys want to see Clarion Call produce as a video, or any topics you guys want to hear us talk about or partake in? It could be anything. I mean, this Friday I was sitting there going, what am I going to make for a video? I'm running out of ideas. And I thought, well, hell, let's do a week in review. And that's what every Friday's video is going to be now, is a week in review. Everything that we've discussed or anything that we've seen released by Elder Scrolls will be in this video. So yeah, anything that you guys want to see or hear, give me some ideas, and we'll try to build something together.
You could go on the player and mob combat system that's been released so far. They have released quite a bit of information about it.
What do you mean?
Mobs actually have very interesting AIs that are running for them. They, like, for example, what I know, they have the same, like, compatibility with each other as we players do. Therefore, by fighting the mobs, you're getting experience fighting players. But not only that, the mobs don't have a standard UI. Like, if you're in a room, they can lay ambush for you. They're not just going to be standing there in that corner over there talking. There might actually be an ambush, or if they're under heavy range fire, they might run behind some rocks to prevent as much range fire on them. The AI is supposed to be adaptive to the environment.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be awesome, and I'm definitely gonna do a video on that. I'm just waiting for at least a little bit more information as to how it's gonna work. If, say, for example, if I go into an area and it's one mob and two other mobs, if I die, say like in a zoned area and I die, if I go back, are they going to be the same two mobs, or are they going to be random each time? So there's different mechanics every time.
I would imagine it would be the same two mobs, but they might be more alert than they were before. Like, oh, hey, this person came in here. Da 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 da. The game might actually remember the old save data for you. Now, I also wonder if, well, what happens if I'm attacking and we don't see this one guy go running off down the hallway, alerts everyone else, and they never come out and tag us like they would in World of Warcraft, and I'm not sure every other game that can be like that. Like, a mob would go flee down a hallway and then come running back with like 50 other people. No, they'll most likely lay an ambush for you when you step into that room, and you'll be completely caught unaware.
Yeah, like I agree. I think it's definitely going to be a fun system. So I'll do a video on that once a little bit more information comes out, just so I'm not speculating too much.
All right.
I'm just pulling up a link right now. Sorry if you heard me typing. That's what I was doing. So something you guys want to see is like reset and health stamina points, class changes. I am also going to email a couple of the community managers over at ZeniMax. Hopefully I can get a reply from them on a couple questions. If they do, you guys will see definitely a couple more videos popping out, maybe in the same day, if they reply. Here's hoping. As to the beta release date video, I already did one. It's right there. I apologize. There is SOTOR in the background. It was one of the videos I was making. I'm like, I gotta put something in the background, and well, all I had was a SOTOR raid video.
Slacker.
Hey, you weren't saying that because you weren't there.
That's true.
And I think I made a comment in there that if my dates are accurate, I'll give out some sort of prize to my YouTube subscribers. I'm pretty confident that my guess is accurate, just based on MMO histories and experience that I've been in. And by accurate, I'm talking like within the week, maybe 2 weeks.
Oh, just in case y'all missed it, but I did post a comment where I sent the introduction video to the Elder Scrolls Online at 2 minutes and 35 seconds. They show you the player's standpoint of what you look like when you are sneaking that they have so far come up with.
Really?
Yeah. You really blacked out in that video, didn't you?
Hey, I said I did, man. I saw that video. I was like, oh wow. Oh. Yeah, I know. I was out. Like I saw it and I was just like, oh wow, this just looks awesome, and I wasn't really paying attention. But
Yeah, like
I'm pulling it up now.
I've
Altair,
watched
there's a
about
question in
5
chat
or
for you.
4 times.
Put your armpit down. It smells.
Shut up. And no, I don't play Cosmic Break.
So you said 2 minutes and what?
35 seconds.
Right-click block, and of course, sprinting, crouching, and sneaking around play a role.
Oh.
Yeah, that's them actually sneaking.
Yeah, but I think if there was someone else's view on that, I don't think he would be nearly as visible.
No, I think that maybe to a other observer, it might be a little bit of like a camouflage effect, where there'll be like a glimmer of where he's at, but you more see the background than you actually see him.
Yeah.
And the better your sneak, the more that gets.
Yeah, exactly. Choco Gel, Altair is not creative, so he just stole the name.
I've been thinking this entire time, Altair, the Assassin's Creed series.
Yep, that's where it's from.
Yep.
I find it funny how Almerish on my part is a typo that just stuck.
Speaking of which, when I originally started SOTOR, my name was spelled wrong. Instead of it being AIR, it was IAR.
And they wouldn't fix it for you, lol.
Nope.
But yet, Falsorum could get his name changed like 3 times. That was funny.
Yeah, no. My idea for the name was I like the way how Marish sound. So I was like, well, in World of Warcraft, because I was like out of ideas for names basically. I got tired of my old standard types of name that I picked. It's like, well, so I just sat there thinking, well, Marish sounds interesting on the tongue, so why not I just take the first 3 letters of the name of the class that I have and put it before Marish. Apparently it typoed and didn't put my P. And then all of a sudden Almerish stuck
You
like
need a
crazy and I
mechanical
couldn't
keyboard.
get away from it.
But yeah, with it being almost 1 o'clock, I definitely want to try to wrap this up. How often do I do these streams? These streams specifically are done every Saturday at 10 p.m. In the new year, I personally, and hopefully Altair, I personally will be streaming every day, pretty much for a while. Every day, I believe my stream time is probably going to be close to like 8 p.m. to about 5 a.m. Every day. And then, like I said, these will be done between 10 p.m. till whenever we want to stop. He linked his Twitch page. Thank you, Altair. Clarion Call will be holding a contest in the new year as well regarding Elder Scrolls Online. So make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel, Clarion Call TV. For more information on that, I'll be releasing